Chapter 1662. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion suddenly came from outside the Ling Tian immortal sect. Violent shockwaves roared as the space gradually distorted and collapsed. The ancient worship at the edge of the storm was unaffected because the 3 chancellors and 9 ministers had gathered the power of the stone statues to form an impenetrable wall that covered a wide area. Bam! 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 The shockwaves crazily attacked the barrier. Junren Tonggu, Masato Kitano, and the other itinerant cultivators hid behind the barrier. Their expressions changed again and again. If there were no stone statue tribe powerhouses, they would be affected by this power. At best, they would vomit blood and be injured. At worst, they would die. The millions of martial artists who were watching the show were unlucky. They did not expect someone to suddenly fly out of the Ling Tian immortal sect and gather a terrifying palm print at lightning speed. Therefore, when the shockwaves spread out, they did not have time to retreat at all. They were all affected. Spurt! Spurt! Blood sprayed wildly on the ground. When the shockwaves gradually weakened, the martial artists who were standing outside the Ling Tian immortal sect's territory were all sent flying for more than 10 miles. There were many corpses lying on the ground. This was the result of watching the show. Of course, the strength of the attack was too high. If it were an ordinary truth-seeking stage cultivator, the shockwaves would not spread so far even if they were badly injured. This is too terrifying. What kind of power is this? The martial artists who were sent flying suppressed the boiling blood in their bodies and tried to look at the crack in the sky. Although the shock waves killed many low-level martial artists, it was still difficult to suppress the curiosity of most people. Therefore, they had to continue watching the show. Moreover, they were already thousands of miles away from the battlefield. If they were affected again, then, they could only accept their fate. Whoosh! 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 In the area where the space collapsed, the wind whistled like blades. A majestic old man about 70 years old gradually appeared. His eyes were deep and sharp, and his skinny palms were surrounded by extremely pure heaven and earth profundity. He was the Grand Elder of the Ling Tian immortal sect, Bo Yazi. This person stood proudly in the shattered space. His every move revealed the demeanor of a powerhouse. He was not someone the patriarch of the 10 major celestial sects could compare to. Half step. No, he's still not as strong as the old patriarch. The 3 chancellors and 9 ministers quickly made this judgment based on the aura released by the old man. That wasn't the main point. The main point was the patriarch all right? Everyone released their spiritual senses and soon found Jun Changshao in the sunken area on the ground. He slowly flew out of the deep pit. The armor on his body was shining, and the corner of his mouth raised into a charming smile. Bo Yazi frowned slightly. The move he used just now was the top martial art of the sect, the Ling Tian crushing seal technique. Furthermore, he had already comprehended it to the extreme, so it was truly inconceivable for him to come out unscathed after a palm strike. No wonder. Bo Yazi thought to himself, to be able to kill 7 patriarch. Although his strength was not as strong as Gongsun Ruoli's, he was very close to the half-step level. Peak-seeking realm cultivators like Junren Tonggu and Masato Kitano were no match for him. Although Jun Changshao didn't manage to resist the palm strike just now and was sent flying out of the worship, he was still unscathed. Judging from the fact that he was almost at the peak of the half-step level. Everyone's success couldn't be separated from hard work and effort, just like Go Sheng's success couldn't be separated from the modification of his level. In fact, when the first fleet of the Star Spirit Realm invaded, Bo Yazi had participated in the battle. At that time, Jun Changshao wasn't qualified to participate in a battle of this level, so from afar, he only felt that the other party was surrounded by unfathomable heaven and earth attributes, making it difficult to see his true appearance. But now, not only could he see clearly, but he could also count the number of nose hairs that were exposed. People who were in seclusion all year round would definitely neglect to wash up. Their hands and feet were too long, and their beard was unshaven. It was normal for their hair to be messy. Slowly flying up and stopping in the sky, Jun Changshao gently patted the dust off his shoulder and said, "I've given the Ling Tian Immortal Sect a way out. Since you don't want to cooperate, then." The ultimate immortal sword appeared out of thin air, and its eyes flashed with strong killing intent, disappear from the upper realm. "Kid," Bo Yazi said coldly, "the Ling Tian Immortal Sect has been in the upper realm for hundreds of thousands of years. How can a newly risen sect like you destroy us?" Grand Elder Lin Haoyan wanted to say something but stopped. If the remaining powerhouse of the older generation did not come out, he would definitely choose to pay the compensation. After all, he was injured from using his divine ability, and the sect's elites had suffered heavy casualties. They could not afford to suffer anymore. Haoyan. Bo Yazi stood with his hands behind his back and said proudly, "Since the establishment of the Ling Tian Immortal Sect until now, we're above all living things, we've relied on our strength. If you use resources in exchange for an ignoble existence today, how can you face your ancestors in the underworld?" This sentence contained majesty and penetrated Lin Haoyan's mind, causing his originally painful and conflicted gaze to instantly become resolute. Grand Elder. I'd rather die in glory than live in dishonor. Bo Yazi said, "This is the person of the Ling Tian Immortal Sect. This is the spirit of the Ling Tian Immortal Sect. Damn it." Jun Changshao cursed in his heart. This guy made it sound so beautiful, as if he was the villain. It was still the same sentence. There was no right or wrong between the two sections. They had different goals. As long as it did not affect the innocent, it did not matter who died or who died. This was because in a world where the strong preyed on the weak, the strong preyed on the weak. All right. Jun Changshao raised his sword and said calmly, "I'll send you all to meet your ancestors in the underworld." Whoosh! The scorching fire soul energy enveloped the sword, and the space was quickly distorted by the heat. Bo Yazi understood that this person's strength could not be underestimated since he did not injure him in the slightest. Therefore, the true spirit energy and heaven and earth profundity in his body erupted wildly, and his gaze became even more serious. "Come!" Jun Changshao shouted, "Let's fight." Bo Yazi said, "If I'm lucky enough to win, the grudge between our sects will be written off. How about that?" "I'm sorry." Jun Changshao stood up with his sword and said, "You can't win. It was here. The patriarch of the sect of all times vs the supreme elder of the high heaven celestial sect. As of now, the battle between the two should be considered the top martial arts competition in the upper realm." Whoosh! The monstrous flaming sword chi cut through the void and rushed over like a roaring fire dragon. Bo Yazi's expression turned serious. His skinny hands waved in the void, and layers of heaven and earth attributes stirred up the layers of space, forming an extremely powerful energy wave. He shouted, "Destruction of all things! Ka ka ka! Ka 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 ka!" It was used by a top expert who was about to reach the half-step stage. The energy wave that gathered the destructive energy wave rushed over quickly and finally collided with the flaming sword chi, producing a dazzling light and a deafening explosion. Fortunately, the ancient warship retreated far away in time, and the violent aftershocks did not disturb them. Boom! However, in the area where the space was distorted and the flame spread, a muffled sound was suddenly heard. Bo Yazi was blasted out like a cannonball, and then he landed at a low altitude in an extremely sorry state. When they saw his face clearly, there was an obvious fist mark on the right side of his face. He was beaten up. Junrin Tongu and Masato Kitano were stunned. Whoosh! At this moment, a red stream of light rushed out from the energy explosion area and approached Bo Yazi. It instantly launched a dazzling attack. Every time it attacked, it would spew out scorching flames and bring about the sound of fists hitting flesh. Tongu, Masato Kitano said in disbelief, "Your disciple's speed is so fast. I can't see him clearly at all." Jinren Tongu was stunned. The speed of his attacks and the strength of his aura were even stronger than when he was supported by the rows of flowers and his bloodline. Could it be that he had comprehended something and his strength had greatly increased? Good tea. Suddenly, there was a sound of praise from the sky. Everyone looked up and saw Jun Changshao standing in the sky, holding a cup of tea in his hand and sipping it carefully. Why was he here? Who was fighting with the Supreme Elder of the Ling Tian Celestial Sect? Boom! On the other side, there was a shocking sound. Bo Yazi staggered and fell to the ground, and he only managed to stabilize himself after taking dozens of steps back. The Supreme Elder of the Ling Tian Celestial Sect. In the sky, a red-haired man in his 20s gradually walked out of the scorching flames. He said with disdain, "Compared to the Dragon Emperor of the past, he's still a far cry." Who? The Vermilion Bird King. Jun Changshao, who was standing in the sky, took another sip of tea and said calmly, "With a powerful bodyguard, why would I need to fight personally?" Fuck. The system roared. The content is seriously inconsistent with the chapter title. Chapter 1663. Boom. Boom. Outside the Ling Tian Immortal Sect, explosions and surging air waves filled the air. All kinds of special effects were so strong that it was hard to open one's eyes. The Supreme Elder of the Ling Tian Immortal Sect was in for a tragedy. In a short time, he was beaten by the Vermilion Bird King until he fell to the ground in a sorry state. His arm was in pain and his fingers were trembling non-stop. "I thought it was very powerful." Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "It turns out that it's so weak." The corner of Jinren Tongu's mouth twitched slightly. "My disciple, it's not that that guy is weak, it's that your contract beast is too strong." This was undeniable. After all, hundreds of thousands of years ago, the Vermilion Bird King was already on par with the previous Dragon Emperor of the dragon race. After the Nirvana rebirth, it was even more insightful. As of now, other than the mysterious storyteller, the only one who could fight it was Gongsun Ruoli, who had just left not long ago. What a joke. If Go Sheng was not confident, why would he dare to fight in other people's territory? Damn it. Bo Yazi's eyes flashed with anger. That guy said that he would fight with him, but in the end, he found someone else to fight for him. If he had more contact with Jun Changshao, he would realize that this kind of shameless behavior was very normal. Of course. Go Sheng had his reasons too. The main responsibility of a sect's leader was to focus on developing the sect. If he had to fight personally, wouldn't his high-level disciples and contract beasts be useless? To put it bluntly, he was just a boss who only needed to count the money and leave the rest to his employees. Ah! Bo Yazi roared, and his combat strength seemed to have increased instantly. He then opened his skinny hands, and streams of light flew out from his palms like cannonballs, blasting toward the Vermilion Bird King. Behind the Vermilion Bird King, beautiful flaming wings appeared out of thin air and quickly covered its entire body, forming an absolute defense. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. The streams of light bombarded mercilessly, and the energy waves were even stronger. However, after a series of attacks, the Vermilion Bird King spread its wings and did not suffer any damage at all. Bo Yazi felt powerless. As soon as the Vermilion Bird King appeared, he realized that the opponent's strength was far above his own. Unless a miracle happened, it would be impossible to fight it. Swoosh! While he was thinking, the Vermilion Bird King closed in on him. He lightly raised 2 fingers, and pure and scorching energy quickly condensed. He said indifferently, "It's over." Boom! The flickering energy suddenly exploded, producing an extremely strong impact. Although Bo Yazi had already made defensive preparations, he was still sent flying. He slid on the ground for several thousand feet before he could stop with great difficulty. Everywhere he passed, deep and long trenches were torn open. Wow! He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face paled. The outcome has been decided. Jinren Tonggu and the other rogue cultivators came to a conclusion. The Vermilion Bird King's figure flashed and squatted in front of Bo Yazi. Flames gathered in its fists as it unleashed a barrage of attacks. Boom boom boom. Boom 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 boom. An unbearable scene of brutality appeared. Even the camera couldn't see it. They could only quietly move to the area of the collapsed space. Boom. The Vermilion Bird King unleashed another heavy punch before standing up. Under its feet, Bo Yazi had already been beaten into a mosaic. At this point, the battle between the patriarch of the sect of all times and the supreme elder of the Ling Tian celestial sect had ended. The winner was Jun Changshao. Some people might not agree, but in fact, he had a contract with the Vermilion Bird King. Winning naturally represented the master. Not convinced? Fine, if you're so capable, capture a powerful demon beast to fight. Supreme Elder, Lin Haoyan stood there in a daze. Bo Yazi was the strongest person in the Ling Tian celestial sect. Now that he was beaten so badly, it was equivalent to the sky collapsing and his mental support collapsing. Sigh. Jun Changshao floated down, shook his head, and said, "If we paid the compensation in the beginning, would we have ended up like this?" Although Bo Yazi was severely injured, he could still think. He tried to gather his strength and said weakly, Ling Tian. Celestial Sect, never. Boom. Jun Changshao directly lifted his foot and stepped on his face. Jun Changshao. Bo Yazi's eyes were spitting fire. He clenched his fists tightly, but he still forced himself to change his tone. Pay the compensation. We'll pay the compensation. At this point, there was no other way. Jun Changshao's foot was still on Bo Yazi's face. He was trampling on the dignity of an celestial sect supreme elder in public. I'm sorry. I gave you a chance. Since you didn't grasp it, there won't be a second chance. Disciples, listen up. Jun Changshao stepped on Bo Yazi and said coldly, "Flatten the Ling Tian celestial sect." Yes. Whoosh. 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 The upper echelons and core disciples on the ancient warship flew out. Behind them, the Diablo fighters were activated and charged toward the Ling Tian celestial sect. Jun Changshao. Lin Haoyan shouted angrily, "How dare you!" Puchi. As soon as he finished speaking, a sharp sword light slashed across his neck. His pupils shrank rapidly. When his mind was disconnected from his body, a cold voice rang in his ears. There's nothing in this world that I, Jun Changshao, don't dare to do. You, Lin Haoyan wanted to speak, but he could not muster the strength to do so. In the end, he could only fall to the ground with anger and unwillingness. 8 of the 10 great celestial sects patriarch were dead. Patriarch. The upper echelons and disciples of the Ling Tian celestial sect shouted in grief. Boom. At this moment, a loud explosion shook the heavens and earth. The sect's protective array outside the sect was directly blasted open. The space was distorted and shattered. Everyone looked up in shock. In the sky, the huge Eternal slowly appeared. The hatch on its abdomen opened, and a cannon that was a combination of array and technology extended very long. Faint white smoke was left behind at the cannon's muzzle. It was obvious that this was the thing that had just blasted the sect's protective array. Patriarch. Shengguan Xinyao, who was in the cockpit, sent a voice transmission. The array has been broken. Jun Changshao felt the pinch. Although the cannon blasted open the Ling Tian celestial sect's protective array, the price of such a high explosion was hundreds of thousands of Dao stones. The system said, "Take down this sect, and everything inside will be at your fingertips. What's there to feel the pinch for?" "That's right." Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. The array was blasted open, and the disciples of the sect of all times surged in like a wave. Although the Ling Tian celestial sect wanted to resist and demonstrate what the spirit of a sect was, most of their elites had died in the Aeon celestial mountain. The remaining disciples could not resist at all. Those who resist, die. Those who disarm, live. The black and white Rakshasa led a large group of disciples into the main peak. However, they did not kill anyone in sight. Instead, they gave them a chance to live. 2 hours later, the main hall that stood at the peak of the mountain collapsed before everyone's eyes. It's over. The celestial sect has been destroyed. The main hall that represented glory and the celestial sect had been reduced to ashes. The cultivators who witnessed this were shocked to an indescribable extent. Immediately, Jun Changxiao, who was hovering above the Ling Tian celestial sect, announced like a god, "The Ling Tian celestial sect will be removed from the upper realm." One of the 10 great celestial sects had been destroyed. Chapter 1664. The patriarch was killed, and the sect was destroyed. The Ling Tian celestial sect that ruled the upper realm 100,000 years ago was finally removed from the upper realm. Nearly 50,000 disciples were still alive. They squatted on the ground and hugged their heads. Although their eyes were filled with grief and anger, they could only obediently become captives. Ding Xingwang suggested to kill them all to prevent future trouble, but Jun Changxiao decided to let them live because the heavens cared for all living things. In fact, the higher-ups and elites of the Ling Tian celestial sect were all killed, and the remaining small fries were no longer a threat. Letting them live would earn them a good reputation, but killing them would only increase their reputation. Jun Patriarch is righteous. If this was the 10 major celestial sects, I'm afraid they wouldn't be so merciful. Seeing the disciples of the Ling Tian celestial sect walk down the mountain dejectedly, the cultivators immediately felt respect in their hearts. However, they would never have thought that Jun Changxiao was standing in the underground treasury at this moment. He squatted on the ground and covered his face with one hand, laughing like a villain. "Oh my God!" Su Xiaomo walked in and saw the mountains of gold and silver in the huge basement, as well as various martial arts resources. His expression gradually stiffened, and he even felt a little dizzy. The Ling Tian celestial sect. One of the leaders of the upper realm. One could see how deep their foundation was just by looking at the treasury. Take them all. Yes. The disciples began to get busy and quickly put all the gold, silver, treasures, and martial arts resources into their interspatial rings. After that, Yuan Gongzi counted them. Excluding ores and herbs, there were billions of mystical stones, hundreds of millions of Dao stones, and tens of thousands of celestial stones. Only 1,000,000. Jun Changxiao could not hide the disappointment on his face as he picked up a celestial stone that was 10 times purer than a Dao stone. The Black Rakshasa said, "Celestial stones are the highest level of martial arts resources in the upper realm. Since ancient times, they have never been circulated in the market in the form of currency. The reason is that they are too rare." According to records, the earliest celestial stone mine appeared was 100,000 years ago. Jun Changxiao heard this and looked at the Taishan elder. He clearly remembered that when he first came to the upper realm, he borrowed 5 kinds of treasures from this guy in order to go back. In the end, he was forced to write an IOU to repay 10 million celestial stones. Damn it! He only got 1,000,000 after destroying a sect, and he actually asked for 10 million. Bah! The system said, "You never even thought of returning it. I swore that if I don't pay it back within 10 years, I'll be struck by lightning." Come on, the host's skin is thicker than the universe. Not to mention 5 lightning bolts, even 500 lightning bolts wouldn't be able to do anything to him. The so-called oath is just a fart. In this world, the person who understood Jun Changshao the most was not Rose of Flowers, nor was it a core disciple of the sect of all times. It was the system that accompanied him every day. Slow down. Don't break it. On the patriarch peak of Ling Tianxian, Li Qingyang instructed his fellow disciples to carefully demolish many buildings. This was an ancient sect that had existed for more than 100,000 years. Many of the building materials were extremely precious. Rather than leaving them here to suffer the erosion of time, it was better to bring them back to the sect to shine. Of course. As a professional architect, Li Qingyang would not disassemble the materials and then reassemble them as they were. He needed to modify them to match the style of the sect. The High Heaven Celestial Sect was located on a huge mountain with many buildings. Therefore, it took them an entire day to demolish everything. Patriarch Li Qingyang said, "It's all done. Let's go." Jun Changshao stood up and said, "Let's go to the next one." Swoosh! Swoosh! The sect of all times flew up and down, leaving behind a bare mountain. Buzz! However, as soon as they left, a light stream array appeared and covered the entire mountain. Jun Changshao's voice could be heard. The High Heaven Celestial Sect is sealed from now on. No one is allowed to enter without permission. If this place was compared to the ancestral land of the various clans, then the High Heaven Celestial Sect would not only be destroyed but also completely sealed. 100,000 years ago, they had participated in sealing the territory of the demonic tribe. 100,000 years later, they had participated in sealing the territory of the Stone Statue tribe and the Dragon tribe. Now, karma had come to an end. Extra, extra. One of the top 10 celestial sects, the High Heaven Celestial Sect, has been destroyed by the sect of all times. The land of the sect has been sealed. That day, under the deliberate efforts of the Drizzle Hall, the news quickly spread to all the major cities and caused an earthquake. Extra, extra. One of the top 10 celestial sects, the Hidden Celestial Sect, has been destroyed by the sect of all times. The land of the sect has been sealed. A few days later, another explosive news came. The world is going to change. The world is really going to change. The top 10 celestial sects had ruled the upper realm for 100,000 years. Now that 2 of them had been destroyed, it was enough to show that not only did the sect of all times have the ability to replace them, but they could even surpass the celestial sects. Smack! In a small city, a storyteller put down the gavel and finished his last sentence. Seeing that there was no one below the stage, he said helplessly, "Who would come to listen to something that everyone knows?" "Me." Suddenly, a voice sounded beside his ear. The storyteller turned to look at a man holding a sword who had appeared under the tree. He shook his head and said, "You still came. I don't understand." The man under the tree said, "With your cultivation base, why are you living in seclusion in this remote village? Do you want to know the reason?" "I do." "Come, sit down and listen to me." The man under the tree frowned slightly and said, "I don't like to listen to nonsense." Ha ha ha. The storyteller laughed loudly and said with a serious expression, "I'm living in seclusion here because I've predicted that someone who will change the order of the universe will appear soon." "Who?" the man under the tree asked. The storyteller took a sip of tea and said, "I can't reveal the secrets of heaven, because those who do will have their entire family killed." The man under the tree understood him and did not continue to ask. He changed the topic. "How long do you plan to stay here? Let's go now." The storyteller stood up and put away the gavel, paper fan, table, and chair. "Where are you going?" "To wander the world." On this day, 2 streams of light silently cut through the spatial barrier of the upper realm and disappeared into the vast universe. Before the storyteller left, he looked at Jun Changshao, who was being extorted by the Supreme Celestial Sect, and thought to himself, could this kid be the person who will change the order of the universe? The patriarch of the Supreme Celestial Sect died in the Aeon Immortal Mountain, and the entire sect was without a leader. The higher-ups did not consider whether the sect of all times would take revenge. Instead, they were divided into several factions to fight for the position of patriarch. After learning about this, Jun Changshao was speechless. This kind of ancient sect that had existed for a long time was really rotten to the core. Forget it. Today, he would destroy it and rearrange the structure of the upper realm, so that the younger generation would have an environment to grow and not be suppressed and ostracized. The system said, "You're just greedy for other people's resources. Don't make yourself sound great. Get lost." The other 9 celestial sects all had grand elders overseeing them. If the sect encountered a life-and-death crisis, they would definitely come out of seclusion to fight. However, facing the powerful Vermilion Bird King, the final result was a complete defeat and they were imprisoned in Tianyuan Prison Pagoda. As the prisoners moved in one after another, Zhao Daodu became arrogant again. After all, his strength was not outstanding in the sect, but at least he was at the peak of the truth-seeking realm. He did not even dare to fight back when he hit them in the face. Everyone had a goal. For example, Yi Xingqian pursued continuous breakthroughs. Zhao Daodu's goal was very simple. With his ordinary identity and cultivation, he could bully all kinds of big shots in the palm of his hand. Boom! Half a month later, when the last celestial sect that did not even deserve a name collapsed, the martial arts resources were swept away, and the mountain was ruthlessly sealed. The 10 great celestial sects that ruled the upper realm for 100,000 years were officially removed from the upper realm and became a passing cloud. How much wealth did they obtain? It was indescribable. As a result, Jun Changshao returned to the sect with a strange smile on his face. Was this the end of the matter? No. The Jia Tang had not been dealt with. This organization supported by the 10 great celestial sects had survived to the end. It was really unexpected. Chapter 1665. The 10 great celestial sects were destroyed and the mountains were sealed. The commotion caused was epic. Everyone knew that the upper realm had changed. Whoever destroyed these top sects would replace them, right? The upper realm no longer had the 10 great celestial sects, only the strongest sects of all time. However, with the destruction of the authoritative sects, it also brought about many problems, the most serious of which was the problem of public security. Those powerhouses who were labeled as traitors did not dare to appear in the open because of the 10 great celestial sects, but now they were unscrupulous. Of course. They did not do anything outrageous and only pointed the spearhead at the Jia Hall. As an authoritative organization on the surface, they had made countless enemies over the years. Now that their backing had collapsed, they would definitely incur crazy revenge. Patriarch Li Luoqiu reported, in just a few days, at least thousands of martial artists went to the Jia Mountain to cause trouble. The Jia Hall is now surrounded by danger and may be destroyed at any time. Oh. Jun Changshao was a little surprised. He forgot that many martial artists' hatred for the Jia Hall was no less than his own. If that's the case, Jun Changshao said, I don't need to do it myself, this so-called authoritative organization will be overthrown by the world. The 10 great celestial sects had been destroyed, the Jia Hall was nothing in his eyes. If he let the upper realm martial artists destroy it and did not participate in the whole process, at least he could gain a good reputation. Sigh. Go Sheng was also a layman. The stronger he was, the more he cared about his reputation. Bah! Seeing the author's narration, the system could not help but spit. If the Jia Hall had 1,000,000 immortal stones, he would run faster than a rabbit. The news of the 10 great celestial sects' destruction continued to ferment, destined to spread in the upper realm for a long time. Jun Changshao calmed down and began to think about his next move. There was nothing to think about. It was nothing more than finding a way to get the recognition of the world, promote the sect to an immortal sect, complete the main mission, and then use the sect of all times to travel the universe and destroy the astral world. However, how could he get recognition? Did he have to play the game of the lower realm and invite the powerhouses and major forces over, then ask who agreed and who disagreed? Simple and crude. The system said, I think so. Jun Changshao muttered in his heart, he thinks it's possible, but I keep feeling that it's not possible. I haven't poisoned you during this period of time. The system was quite shameless. Didn't it know if it had healed you recently? There's still 10 years left. Jun Changshao thought to himself, there's less than 2 years left. We still have to fight the child of the existential plane. To be honest, if Shizuan hadn't made the decision to challenge Gu Hongzhenren on his own, he wouldn't have bothered to compete to determine the winner or loser, because there was no benefit to it. After breaking through to the peak of the truth-seeking realm, he was even more reluctant to fight. Wouldn't it be obvious that he was bullying a Taoist master's disciple since he was only a half-step Taoist master? Child of the dimension. I'm sorry. In front of me, the king of cheats, you are not even worth mentioning. Right. Jun Changshao slapped his forehead and said, there's also Empress Lingyao. She also wants to participate in the battle. At this time, Dosheng realized that the point of the 10-year promise was not him, but whether Yixingchen could take revenge and get rid of his inner demons. Inner demons were very appropriate. Ever since his rebirth, the Knight the Arch had never forgotten his grudges. He had been cultivating diligently all the time. Not to mention his inner demons, he was almost possessed by them. On a mountain peak, Gu Hongzhenren stood there, his eyes full of vicissitudes. He and Jinren Tonggu had fought for most of their lives, but it was always difficult to determine the winner. Later, he took in a child of the existential plane with extraordinary talent and decided to fight for glory on behalf of his master. In the end, his disciple destroyed the 10 major immortal sects. He felt terrible and wanted to cry. Gu Hongzhenren clutched his chest, his expression becoming more and more pained. At this moment, he didn't have any hope for the promise of 10 years. After all, Jun Changzhao's strength was enough to kill 7 immortal sect leaders. Even if it was him, he wouldn't be able to win, let alone his disciple. Sigh. Gu Hongzhenren sighed and said, I can only stand you up. This guy was really shameless. He knew that Jun Changshao was very strong and decided not to fight. Master. At this time, the black-robed man walked over and said, I will go. Gu Hongzhenren said, you are hitting a rock with an egg. Master once said that only by fighting with a true expert can one realize one's own shortcomings, the black-robed man said. Gu Hongzhenren fell silent and praised, I am very pleased that you can think this way. Good. I will go. Recently, the Jia Hall had not been doing well because there was an endless stream of martial practitioners coming to find trouble every day. What they could not accept the most was that some of the Tao and true sects that had once submitted to the immortal sects were starting to take advantage of them. Patriarch Sun. On the World Mountain, the elder temporarily in charge of all the internal affairs of the Jia Hall rebuked angrily, when did our Jia Hall owe your Stone K Tao sect any magnetite? Deacon Lin is really forgetful. The Stone K Tao sect patriarch said indifferently, didn't your Jia Hall borrow 10 million magnetite from my sect 100 years ago when you renovated the inner and outer courts? Deacon Lin immediately exploded and roared, those 10 million magnetite were clearly given by your sect. That's right. It was a gift. The reason was because of the 10 great immortal sects. Now that their backer was gone, the Stone K Tao sect felt uncomfortable thinking about the money they had given in the past, so they had to quickly come and ask for it. Are you giving it or not? Patriarch Sun said indifferently. Deacon Lin suppressed his anger and said in a pleading tone, Patriarch Sun, our Jia Hall really cannot take out so many magnetite. You're not giving it. Fine, repay the debt with items. Patriarch Sun was not a wishy-washy person. He immediately ordered his disciples to start tearing down the Jia Hall's buildings. After all, these things were bought with his own money. A moment later, the various buildings in the outer court were mostly torn down. Deacon Lin sat weakly on the ground and said a very realistic sentence: everyone kicks a falling wall, and 10,000 people beat a drum when it breaks. When the 10 great immortal sects were still around, the Stone K Dao sect would not dare to ask for it even if they had 10 guts. Now that their backer was gone, they dared to jump out and stab a knife in the heart. However, a few days later, when Jun Changshao learned from Li Luoqiu that the Jia Hall had offended too many people and owed too many debts, their headquarters had been completely torn down, he commented, "A just cause enjoys abundant support, while an unjust cause finds little support." The 10 great immortal sects and the Jia Hall had indeed helped the upper realm resolve many crises, but it could not cover up the various mistakes they had made. Therefore, they could only blame themselves for their current situation. If the sect of all times falls from glory to rock bottom one day, we'll definitely receive help from all sides. Jun Changshao said confidently. Bullshit. The system said, it should be from all sides. Jun Changshao rolled his eyes and said, if that's the case, then the sect of all times will exist for eternity, never decline, and not be laughed at by the world. The system sighed. There's no such thing as eternity in this world. Host, don't be too idealistic. Jun Changshao was a little surprised. When the system said this, it was full of human feelings, as if it had experienced it deeply before, so it said secretly, there's a story. Story my ass. The system said, I'm just a virtual assistant that was created. Who created it? Jun Changshao asked suspiciously. Sigh. Looks like I can't hide it anymore. The system paused for a moment and said, to be honest, the host used to be the creator. Because being invincible was too lonely, you created the system and integrated it into your soul to break the cycle of reincarnation. You chose to start all over again and experience the various forms of life. Fuck. Jun Changshao roared, aren't all these things that I've thought about before? Go Sheng was no longer limited to his parents being the heavenly emperor and empress. He began to imagine that the system's origin might have been because he was too awesome in his previous life and created it for his own entertainment. Of course. It was nothing more than a random thought and had never been publicly expressed. Today, the system mercilessly exposed it. Fuck. Annoying. Chapter 1666. A month after the annihilation of the 10 great celestial sects, the upper realm gradually returned to peace. As for the Jia Hall, it existed only in name and could almost be regarded as invisible. Another half a month passed. The martial artists who worked there could no longer bear the wanton harassment of forces and rebels, so they all chose to leave. The Jia Mountain suddenly became empty. With the disappearance of the Jia Hall, the era of the 10 great celestial sects controlling the upper realm was completely over. There were pros and cons. The pros were that without all kinds of rules and restrictions, the sects could develop without scruples. The cons were that without supervisors, the various forces were destined to fight for benefits, which would affect innocent people. This was not. Many sects and clans were fighting with each other. Usually, everyone had accumulated a lot of conflicts, but because of the existence of the 10 great celestial sects, there were all kinds of strict rules, so they could only endure for a while and calm down. Now that there were no restrictions, they naturally did not care. Patriarch Li Luoqiu reported, many sects are fighting each other for territory and benefits, and the situation in the major cities is not optimistic. It was not only the sects that were fighting, but also the families. It could be said that without the restrictions of the 10 great celestial sects, the upper realm was in chaos. Pass down the order. Jun Changshao said, the sect of all times has been annihilated and replaced by the 10 great celestial sects. Naturally, we have to bear the responsibility of maintaining world peace. Any individual, family, or force that dares to break the law will be severely punished. Yes. That day, the notice boards in the major cities were stamped with the seal of the Sect of All Times. As expected. After reading the content, someone said, the Sect of All Times has made their move. In fact, after the 10 great celestial sects were annihilated, many martial artists were discussing whether this sect would replace them, and now it was confirmed. Who was not convinced? Everyone was convinced. The various forces that were fighting in the wilderness and the cities immediately calmed down after hearing the news. They almost shook hands and drank with each other on the spot. The 10 great celestial sects were like heaven to the martial artists of the upper realm. The annihilation of their sect of all times was like the heavens above. Now that the order had just been issued, if they did not follow it, they would definitely die miserably. It had to be said. Jun Changxiao's extermination of the immortal sect had filled the sect with deterrence. One had to know that since ancient times, it was common for sects to have grudges against each other. However, it was extremely rare for it to develop to the point of exterminating a sect, let alone 10 top sections. His sect of all times was ruthless and even dared to destroy the celestial sect. Wouldn't a small sect like his die just like that? Well done. Know your place. Jun Changxiao himself did not expect that the entire upper realm would calm down when he merely issued an order not to commit crimes. There were even forces that sent their disciples down the mountain to help the old grannies cross the road. Pooh! In the forging hall, Fan Yezi spat out a mouthful of blood. Many readers subconsciously guessed that it must be the result of being exploited by the black-hearted boss. In reality, that was not the case. The reason why Hall Master Fan vomited blood was not because of his daily work, but because the patriarch had suddenly rushed over. The first thing he said was, melted the third-generation armor and used it to build a battleship. They had to wake up early and work late at night to produce equipment, and they even had to reforge it after using it. This was too fucked up. The Taishian elders saw the mechs as their own children. How could Fan Yezi not see the forged equipment as his own flesh and blood? Elder Fan. Jun Changxiao passed him a tissue and comforted him, I understand your pain, but our sect of all time still has to conquer the Sea of Stars, so the battleship used across the universe must be built as soon as possible. After destroying the 10 celestial sects, the situation had stabilized, so the era of space exploration was about to begin. He hoped to build a fleet to travel the vast universe. Okay, Fan Yezi's lips were trembling as he said this. On that day, the new armor worn by the disciples and the wavy devil soldiers were all thrown into the smelting furnace. The formation hall was also in pain, because the mechs made from the heavenly spirit quenching or could not escape the fate of being melted down. It's gone. Seeing the new number 66 mech being sent into the furnace, Jing Ji shed tears. Why are you crying? Li Tian roared, that's mine. They did not have the mechs, but they could build a battleship. Hall Master Fan. The next day, the old man from Taishian placed the blueprints on the table and said, the internal parts of the battleship still need to be completed by the casting hall. Fan Yezi, who looked half dead, immediately straightened his body and grinned, no problem. Jun Changxiao, who was standing outside the door, quietly watched the two old men seriously discussing the battleship construction plan. The corner of his mouth gradually rose, and a smile appeared on his face, like a kind boss. With such conscientious employees, the sect of all times would not have to worry about not being able to grow stronger. Building a battleship used across the universe was not only a big project, but also a test of one's skills. Therefore, the old man from Taishian led the formation hall and the casting hall to set up a research team to solve all the problems in the shortest time possible. How long? Jun Changxiao asked. 2 to 3 years if it's fast, 30 to 50 years if it's slow. The old man from Taishian did not dare to guarantee an accurate completion time. After all, a huge battleship had an extremely complicated process, and it had to be done slowly without the slightest carelessness. Okay. Jun Changshao said, I'll leave it to you. After leaving the formation hall, Goshen went to the back of the mountain and sat in front of Gu Zhaoxi's grave. He took out a jar of drunken dreams and said, Brother, I'm here to see you again. Although he knew from the storytellers that Gu Tianqing's son had a reincarnation spirit, and that Gu Zhaoxi might have been reincarnated, in this life, he sacrificed for the sect and for the upper realm, and naturally could not forget. This matter is settled. Jun Changshao drank a mouthful of wine and said, I'll come and find you. The mountain and sea realm. Gu Zhaoxi sat on a mountain peak and rested her face on her hands. What memories did I lose? Gua. His father shouted, You're slacking off again. Father. Gu Zhaoxi was speechless. The martial arts you taught me were not difficult at all. Now that I've learned them all, I have nothing to do. That's fine. Gu Tianqing walked over and said, Come with me to visit the realm lord of the mountain and sea realm, and also to see your future wife. Huh. Gu Zhaoxi was about to cry. With the realm lord and his wife's appearance, their daughter will definitely be neither human nor ghost. If I go and see her, will my eyes be able to take it? Father. He said weakly, Can I break off the engagement? Bang! Gu Zhaoxi rose from the ground and flew out of the mountain peak, hanging upside down on a cliff tree. Then, he heard Gu Tianqing roar, The wife I found for you is both talented and beautiful. If you dare break off the engagement, I'll immediately cut off all ties with you. 2 years. It passed quickly. After the sect of all times made the announcement, the upper realm was unusually quiet and peaceful. Although people would occasionally talk about the 10 great celestial sects, because they had become history, it was nothing more than a topic of conversation. The sect of all times was as peaceful as ever. The upper echelons and disciples were either cultivating or doing missions. Their days were simple and low-key. The busiest were the formation hall and the forging hall. Because they had been focusing on the warship for 2 years, they finally succeeded in forging one yesterday. Very good. Standing in front of a warship similar to the Eternal, Jun Changshao said with satisfaction, Very good. This warship was modeled after the Taishian Old Man. The internal formation system was all from the star spirit world, so it could travel through the universe without any problems. Patriarch. Zhen Dejuan suggested, Do you want to give it a name? Yes. Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, Master spent 2 years to forge this warship, so it's called Changshao. The Taishian Old Man's expression stiffened. He thought that he would name it Taishian, but he used his own name. Human. How could he be so shameless? Creak. In the courtyard, Yi Xingqian pushed open the door and walked out. He looked up at the sky, his eyes flashing with killing intent. Empress Ling Yao, are you ready to die? In the barren land. Taoist Qin Wei sat cross-legged on a strange rock. After a while, she opened her eyes and saw a graceful figure coming out of the exit. She breathed a sigh of relief. Master. Empress Ling Yao stopped and said, Where is the location of the battle? Burial Night Mountain. Where is it? In the Sect of All Times main hall, Yi Xingqian's eyes widened. Jun Changshao looked at the letter sent by his master and said, The place where the stars fell, Burial Night Mountain. Yi Xingqian's mouth twitched violently. The stars fell. Burial Night. The Patriarch's master chose the location of the battle. Was he hinting that he was going to die? The name is not good for you. Jun Changshao walked down and patted him on the shoulder. But I believe that you have the strength to defeat any opponent. When do we leave? Now. Chapter 1667. A long time ago, a huge meteorite passed through the space barrier, dragging a dazzling stream of light and falling in the upper world, causing the ground to sink for tens of thousands of miles. Therefore, it was described as the land of the fallen stars. Because of the violent impact and the meteorite's collapse, it formed a high mountain mainly made of black iron, so it was also called the Zanya Mountain. This place, this name. It arranged Yixingqian clearly. The land of the fallen stars was barren, and the heaven and earth attributes were not particularly strong. Few martial artists came here on weekdays. However, it was very strange these days. Individual cultivators from all over the world had rushed here, and it was as lively as the new year. I didn't expect that Gu Hongzhenren and Jinren Tonggu actually made a duel 10 years ago and let each other's disciples fight it out. Jun Patriarch destroyed the 10 major immortal sects, and his strength is above the peak of the truth-seeking realm. Is there any suspense in this battle? No one knew who spread the news and location of the 10-year agreement. The martial artists in the upper world had nothing to do, so when they heard about it, they immediately came to watch the fun. To be exact, they came to see Gu Hongzhenren make a fool of himself. The scene of Jun Changshao leading his people to destroy the 10 major immortal sects 2 years ago was still vivid in their minds. That guy sent his disciple to challenge him, which was a bit overconfident. The martial artists in the upper world were all on Go Xing's side. Before they went anywhere, they were mocked and ridiculed by passers-by. Who is Gu Hongzhenren's disciple? Why haven't I heard of him? He should be young, or he wouldn't dare to challenge Jun Patriarch. From everyone's words and actions, they really didn't think highly of Gu Hongzhenren's disciple at all. It was easy to have the illusion that Go Sheng was the villain and the other party was the protagonist. We're here. Someone shouted. The martial artists who were on their way looked up and saw a mountain range that looked like a sleeping giant demon beast. An expert with a decent cultivation base saw 2 people hanging above the Zanya mountain from afar. He released his spiritual senses and said in surprise, Immortal Qingwei. Empress Lingyao. Why are they here? I heard that the 2 of them are master and disciple. Reverend Qin Wei, Jinren Tonggu, and Reverend Gu Hun are martial artists of the same generation. Rumor has it that in their early years, there were extremely complicated emotional disputes. There were often many stories about top experts that were known to the public. Some of them had actually happened, while others were fabricated. For example, the emotional dispute that had just been mentioned was just a groundless accusation that was made up out of nothing. Of course, no one would verify whether it was true or false, because only then would it be worth discussing. Take Jun Changshao as an example. Over the past 2 years, news about him had spread in the upper realm. Some of it was true, while some were false. The most outrageous one was that the reason for the destruction of the 10 great celestial sects was because of a female confidant. The moment he opened his mouth, the contents were all made up. Gradually, the patriarch of the sect of all times became an infatuated man in the eyes of some people. After Jun Changshao learned about this, he did not stop the rumors from spreading. Legends needed to be shaped with a wonderful story to become real. Disciple. Reverend Qin Wei, who was hovering above Zanya Mountain, said, Are you confident that you can defeat that disciple called Yixingqian? The promise of 10 years had nothing to do with her, but she insisted on interfering. Now that she knew how strong the sect of all times was, she was very worried that her disciple would not be able to win. No. Empress Lingyao said. Reverend Qin Wei fell silent. Whoosh! Suddenly, 2 streams of light flew over from afar and hovered 100 feet away. The newcomers were Gu Hongzhenren and his disciple. Both of them wore black robes that were extremely similar to the color of Zanya Mountain below. Qin Wei. It's just a battle, why did you call so many martial artists to watch? Gu Hongzhenren's eyes were filled with anger. Reverend Qin Wei said lightly, It wasn't me. It wasn't you. Gu Hongzhenren turned his head and said through gritted teeth, It must be that old man Tong Gu. That's right. A large number of martial artists appearing in the land of the fallen stars was not the rule of this book's protagonist fighting with others, but Jinren Tonggu had spread the news in advance. Why was the promise of 10 years? To determine victory in defeat, to save face. With such a strong disciple, he naturally had to show off in front of others. From this, it could be seen that the so-called jumping out of the 3 realms and not within the 5 elements was completely nonsense from Jun Changshao. Everyone, please do not believe it. The system roared, as if anyone believes it. This is your disciple. Reverend Qin Wei carefully sized up the black-robed person whose appearance could not be seen clearly and whose gender could not be determined. She muttered in her heart, I can't see his realm, looks like his aura is blocked by a treasure. That's right. Old man Gu Hong's expression was a little proud. Reverend Qin Wei said, you should have heard of the strength of Tong Gu, Er's disciple, yet you still dare to fight. Aren't you afraid of losing face in public? Likewise. Old man Gu Hong smiled faintly. At this moment, he still did not know that Empress Ling Yao's opponent was not Jun Changshao, but his disciple Yi Xingqian. Reverend Qin Wei did not explain, silently waiting for Jinren Tonggu's arrival in midair. Ha! After a while, wild waves of laughter were heard. Whoosh! Jinren Tonggu dragged a stream of light and hung in midair of Mount Zangye. He smiled and said, both of you are early. In this battle, his disciple was bound to win, so he was very relaxed and even wanted to laugh out loud. Tisk, Gu Hongjinren snorted coldly. Old man. Reverend Qin Wei said faintly, where's your disciple? As soon as her voice fell, a moving rhythm suddenly came from afar, instantly enveloping the land of the fallen stars. All the martial cultivators turned to look and saw the disciples of the sect of all time somersaulting and stopping at the foot of the mountain, forming a line, and then holding up the sky with both hands. Jun Patriarch, with his literary and martial virtues, will benefit the common people for thousands of years, and will live as long as the heavens. Under the super loud background music and the extremely awkward shouts of the disciples, Jun Changshao landed on Mount Zangye with a gorgeous light, and then elegantly made a slim and graceful, standing posture with one hand behind his back. This style of appearance was partly inspired by the sect master of the Demon Emperor's Gate. The expressions on everyone's faces were very interesting. To be honest, at this moment, they really wanted to run over and drown this guy, who was forcing himself to show off, with their saliva. Swish! After the pose was done, Jun Changshao cupped his hands politely and said, Greetings, master. Greetings, seniors. In terms of strength, Go Sheng had long surpassed the peak of the truth-seeking realm, but considering that they were of the same generation as his master, he was very polite, so no one could find fault with him. Humph. Gu Hongjinren and Reverend Qin Wei responded with cold snorts and gave this boy a comment in their hearts fancy and fake. Since you're all here. Masato Kitano appeared on Mount Zangye at some point and said as the referee, then let's hurry up and fight to determine the winner. Please. Jun Changshao showed the demeanor of a top powerhouse. Gu Hongjinren said, Disciple, let's fight. Yes. The black-robed man landed lightly on Mount Zangye. The 3 rogue cultivators had made a 10-year appointment, which was not an extremely formal battle, so they didn't pay much attention to it. As long as they said to start, they would definitely go straight to the point. Jun Changshao had been using his spiritual senses to lock on the black-robed man hundreds of feet away, and he thought to himself, I still can't detect the strength of this person. The system said, don't underestimate the enemy. Chapter 1668. Jun Changshao had fought with the black-robed man once in the holy city, but because of his poor acting skills, he lost very quickly. Today was different. With so many martial artists watching, he had to take it seriously. Jun Patriarch. The black-robed man said, You may begin. Are you not going to take off your black robe? Jun Changshao wanted to see this guy's true face, but because of the black robe and the obstruction of the isolation treasure, he could not pry. The black-robed man said, "Wearing these clothes gives me a sense of security." Jun Changshao muttered in his heart, "Could it be that it's afraid to see the light?" The system said, "There are thousands of races in the upper realm, maybe there are special existences that are allergic to sunlight." "All right." Jun Changshao shrugged and said, "Since you're willing to wear this kind of loose clothing that's not good for fighting, then let's begin." Thud. He took a step back with his right foot and made Huang Feihong's signature move, saying, "Please enlighten me." Disciple. Junren Tonggu said telepathically, "With so many people watching, I'll have to rely on you to defend my face. Don't go easy on me anymore." "Don't worry." Jun Changxiao's face showed a rare seriousness, saying, "I'll do my best." This expression did not appear even when he challenged the 10 great immortal sects. It was enough to show that he was serious to save face for his master. Many people thought that the shameless Go Sheng was the most dangerous. But in reality, Go Sheng was the most dangerous when he was serious. "Please." Whoosh! After the black-robed man greeted them, he rushed over with his hands behind his back. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. Energy different from the power of true spirit erupted from his body, quickly fluctuating the space, creating layers of ripples visible to the naked eye. Jinren Tonggu and Qin Wei were stunned. This body technique, this attribute, it did not belong to the upper realm martial arts system at all. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, the black-robed man leaped up. His body instantly split into thousands of clones that were extremely similar to his original body in midair. Then, all of them put their hands together and gathered a dazzling light. Stars gather as one. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, countless clones blasted out light from their hands, and as they shot out, they gathered together to form an extremely huge shock wave. The truth-seeking realm. Jinren Tonggu and Reverend Qin Wei roughly judged the black-robed man's current strength based on the intensity of his energy. However, they didn't dare to give a definite answer because he had just made a move. Perhaps he was just testing the waters. Swish! The powerful impact seemed to have pierced through the void and directly locked onto Jun Changshao. He shook his head. Too weak. He wasn't trying to act cool, but rather, boom. Suddenly, Jun Changshao threw a punch and shattered the incoming energy wave. The whole process could be said to be effortless. Even his hair was not messed up by the wind. Swish! Swish! The black-robed man seemed to have expected this. Taking advantage of his opponent's counterattack, thousands of clones appeared in the air above him, striking out complicated hand seals from various angles. Boom! 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 In an instant, the dazzling energy landed in the area where Jun Changshao was like a bomb, and the seemingly hard black iron ground gradually collapsed and caved in. Gu Hongjinren's disciple is really something. All the warriors were amazed. In their opinion, it wasn't shameful even if he lost by approaching Jun Patriarch in an instant and launching a barrage of attacks. Whoosh! At this moment, Jun Changshao flew out of the energy explosion area. His right hand was like a large pincer, directly strangling the black-robed man's throat. Bang! 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 The original body was captured, and thousands of clones collapsed. Child of the dimension. Jun Changshao said, "That's all you got." Boom! The black-robed man was directly thrown to the ground, and the black iron ground hundreds of feet around him instantly caved in. Good! Jinren Tonggu shouted excitedly. Although he firmly believed that Jun Changshao could defeat the black-robed man, he was still quite worried when the battle started. He was worried that the kid was deliberately acting as him. Now that he was serious and even merciless, he was very gratified. He looked at Gu Hongjinren proudly and said, "You'll lose for sure." Gu Hongjinren was silent. If not for his disciples' repeated pleas, he definitely wouldn't have come. Whoosh! The black-robed man jumped up from the ground, and his hands were clearly trembling. Being thrown from a high altitude by Jun Changshao like a chicken had damaged his meridians in many places. Fortunately, his face was covered by the black robe, so no one could see his painful expression. Admit defeat. Jun Changshao said, "You're no match for me." He appeared to be very serious, but he always held back. Otherwise, if he went all out, his opponent would have been dead. His master and Gu Hongjinren didn't get along, but there was no deep hatred. Moreover, it was just a spar, so there was no need to take his life. "Sorry." The black-robed man said, "I never take the initiative to admit defeat." Whoosh! Jun Changshao appeared in front of him and directly grabbed him by the collar, saying, "Then I'll make you admit defeat." Thousand Mountains Path Clear Explosion. Boom! The battle area suddenly exploded, rolling up white smoke. Cough, cough. Jun Changshao walked out from inside, choked to tears. As for the black-robed man who was previously bound, he had disappeared. Where is he? Everyone was stunned. Whoosh! Suddenly, Jun Changshao rushed over, his big hand directly piercing through the void, and pulled out the black-robed man hiding in it. Then, with a bang, he pressed him to the ground and said, "Don't play these fancy tricks. It's useless. Do you admit defeat?" "No." Boom! 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 Jun Changshao directly pulled the black-robed man up and threw him from left to right, and from right to left, making the martial artists unable to bear to look at him. Gu Hongjinren's face was ugly, and his heart was pierced by a sharp pain. Of course, he brought this child of the dimension to the upper realm in hopes of winning against Jinren Tonggu on his behalf. However, after 10 years of being together, they naturally developed a close relationship. "My disciple doesn't know how to control his strength," Jinren Tonggu said. "If you don't want your disciple to suffer, you'd better persuade him to admit defeat quickly." Gu Hongjinren said in a low voice, "This is his own initiative to come to the appointment. It's up to him to decide whether he wins or loses. I can't make the decision." Boom! Boom! Jun Changshao threw back and forth a few more times. Seeing that the man's black robe was still airtight, and it was difficult to see his face, he reached out and said, "Today, I'd like to see whether this child of the dimension is a man or a woman, a human or a demon." Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, the black robe flew out. Jinren Tonggu and Gu Hongjinren both released their spiritual senses to look. Without the disguise of the clothes, the black-robed man's appearance finally surfaced. He was in his early 20s, with messy black hair and skin as fair and smooth as pearls. A woman? Jinren Tonggu's eyes widened. Jun Changshao's expression was even more exaggerated. He was riding on the man's body. After seeing the man's face clearly, he was stunned and could not believe his eyes. He said with his mouth agape, "Shi Jingxian." That was right. Judging from her appearance, the disciple of Gu Hongjinren, who was brutally beaten up, was indeed the palace master of Miaohua Palace. Jun Patriarch. When she heard Jun Changshao call her name, her pale face forced a smile and said, "So, you still remember my name?" Doshing immediately panicked. He put his hands on her shoulders and shook her vigorously. "Hold on. You must hold on." Puff. Chapter 1669. Jun Changshao did not expect Gu Hongjinren's disciple to be Shi Jingxian. Otherwise, he would not have hit her so hard. Ignorance was blameless, so he could not be blamed. However, since he knew her identity, he did not immediately lay her flat on the ground for immediate treatment. Instead, he shook her violently. Was he trying to kill her? Pfft. Shi Jingxian spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face turned even paler, but a smile remained on her face. Counting the time, from the time when Jun Changshao went into seclusion to study the fortune-seizing formation of heaven and earth to the time when he ascended to the upper realm, the two of them hadn't seen each other for at least 20 years. Now that they had met each other in such a way and he still remembered her name, she was very satisfied. What's going on? All the martial artists were confused. They were not surprised that Gu Hongjinren's disciple turned out to be a girl. Instead, they were surprised that Jun Changxiao looked very nervous after beating her up. Of course. When Jun Changxiao was developing in the lower realm, Shi Jingxian and her Miaohua palace were allies of the sect of all times. Now that she was beaten up by him, she must be blaming herself and feeling bad. Old friend. Masato Kitano asked telepathically, does your disciple know this girl? Jinren Tonggu shook his head to show that he did not know. However, he suddenly had a bad feeling. As expected. His bad feeling was about to come true. Jun Changxiao carried Shi Jingxian, who was on the verge of fainting, and said, Master, I admit defeat. Pfft. Jinren Tonggu spat out blood. This brat, he's tricking me again. Jun Patriarch admitted defeat. All the martial artists' expressions changed when they heard Jun Changxiao's words. Judging from the situation just now, Taoist Master Gu Hong's disciple was bound to lose without a doubt. However, after she revealed her outstanding beauty, sect leader Jun instantly admitted defeat. Could it be that there was a secret between the two of them? I understand now. Someone guessed, this girl might be Jun Patriarch's confidant. The crowd's imagination ran wild. They thought of many things in a short period of time. Among them, the most agreed-upon conclusion was that there must have been some sort of misunderstanding between the two, which led to today's battle. Wow! How romantic! Many female martial artists were envious. At this moment, the most confused person was Gu Hongjinren. If that guy admitted defeat, wouldn't he win? Ha ha ha. Gu Hongjinren laughed with his hands on his hips. Although Jun Changxiao purposely went easy on him, this was a battle that was set in advance. Moreover, there were various martial artists watching the battle. A win was a win, there was no doubt about it. In fact, ever since Jun Changxiao destroyed the 10 major celestial sects 2 years ago, Gu Hongjinren had been very depressed. This was because he did not think that his disciple could win. In fact, he even thought that he would lose just now. On the contrary, Jinren Tonggu thought that he would win, provided that he did not pretend to be himself. At first, when he saw that Go Sheng was serious and decisive, he was overjoyed. He even tried to show off in front of Gu Hongjinren. In the end, if one were to use an idiom to describe it, it would be, extreme joy begets sorrow. Sigh. Masato Kitano shook his head helplessly and announced, the winner of this battle is Gu Hongjinren's disciple. Wah! Jinren Tonggu spat out another mouthful of blood. He was so angry that he fainted on the ground. Patriarch Sun Bukong, who had just walked up with a medicine box on his back, exclaimed, Senior Tonggu fainted. Save Palace Master Shi first. Yes. After Shi Jingxian revealed her identity and Jun Changxiao admitted defeat, the battle between the two older generation experts ended. The battle wasn't very exciting, but the story behind it was quite thought-provoking. It was not hard to imagine that when the news spread in the upper realm and spread by word of mouth, it would evolve into many versions. Would it add some love to Go Sheng? It's not a big problem. At the foot of Zangye Mountain, after taking his pulse, Sun Bukong said, he just needs to recuperate for a while and he will recover. Jun Changxiao breathed a sigh of relief. Senior brother. Sun Muching asked, who is this person? Patriarch's old lover in the lower realm. Bang! Su Xiaomao was sent flying on the spot, dragging a beautiful arc as he fell thousands of feet away. His eyelids rolled back and white foam came out of his mouth. Sun Muching shuddered and hurriedly retreated far away. Under the care of the healing pills developed by Sun Bukong, Shi Jingxuan's injuries were suppressed, and her face gradually became rosy. Then, she smiled with difficulty. I didn't expect to meet you in this way one day. I didn't expect it either. Jun Changshao said, Palace Master Shi is the child of the realm that Master mentioned. Shi Jingxian said bitterly, a child of the realm without parents, relatives, or friends. Jun Changshao did not ask too much because she was still injured, but he could roughly guess that since she was the child of the realm, it should be related to the special attribute in her body. Actually, after Master and Senior Tonggu made the 10-year promise, I knew that my opponent would be you, so I waited and looked forward to it for 10 years. I only hoped that I wouldn't lose too badly when I stood in front of you, but in the end. Shi Jingxian said bitterly, the gap is bigger than in the lower realm. Palace Master Shi, you've done very well. This was not deliberately comforting, but Jun Changxiao's heartfelt words. To be able to withstand his attacks with the strength of a lower truth-seeking realm cultivator and only be injured, it was enough to show that her resistance was very strong. Patriarch, do you want to save Senior Tonggu? What are you waiting for? Go. Yes. Sun Bukong quickly ran over. He was not really going to treat Jinren Tonggu. After all, this kind of top expert had a lot of HP, and spitting a few mouthfuls would not hurt him. It was just that standing on the side and being a third wheel was a bit awkward. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were very perceptive. From beginning to end, they kept an absolute distance from the patriarch, so as not to disturb their private time together. They even secretly speculated that no wonder he did not bring his wife this time, so, there was something fishy. Impossible. Su Xiaoma stood up holding his waist and said, Patriarch is not such a person, I swear to the heavens in the name of Elder Wei. What kind of person Gosheng was, Su Gosheng knew best. If he had feelings for Palace Master Shi, or if they were still together, it was absolutely impossible. He was right. Jun Changxiao's current state of mind was nothing more than meeting an old friend after a long separation. As for other aspects, there was nothing at all. Jun Patriarch, your injuries are not light, don't talk first. Oh. Although the two rarely got to be alone together, the atmosphere instantly became awkward. Jinren Tonggu woke up after Sun Bukong pinched his philtrum, but when he thought that he was being played by his disciple again, he almost fainted again. Old Tonggu. Daoist Qin Wei said lightly, don't forget the battle between us. Senior, please rest assured. Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said, this junior is already prepared. When Jinren Tonggu heard him, he almost jumped up and scolded, unfilial disciple, don't try to act as your master again. Master. Jun Changshao said, for the battle with Senior Qin Wei's disciple, I will send out the core disciples of the sect of all times. It is absolutely guaranteed. Yi Xingqian. Yi Xingqian, who was already prepared, turned into a stream of light and landed on Zanya Mountain. His cold gaze locked onto Empress Ling Yao, who was surrounded by clouds, and he shouted, come down and die. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Violent waves of energy erupted, shaking the heavens and earth. After being disturbed, all the martial artists were shocked and said, what a strong killing intent. Chapter 1670. In fact, from the beginning, Jun Changshao didn't take the promise of 10 years seriously. After all, he had broken through to the peak of the truth-seeking realm and defeated the patriarch of the immortal sect. Fighting with Gu Hongjinren's disciple was obviously bullying, so winning or losing was not important. But this battle was very important to Yi Xingqian. Because since his rebirth, hatred had always been urging him to keep moving forward and breaking through realms. Today, he could finally wash away his shame. Perhaps it was because he had been suppressing it for too long, but when he landed on Zanya Mountain, his monstrous anger and killing intent were unreservedly released, causing all the martial artists to shudder. Perfected Qingwei frowned. The killing intent of this sect of all time's disciple was too strong. Obviously, he wanted to kill her disciple. She regretted it. She regretted interfering back then. In fact, even if perfected Qingwei didn't participate in the promise of 10 years, Yi Xingqian and Empress Lingyao would still come to this point today. Because the grudges between the two had to be settled before the upper world chapter could be declared complete. Disciple. Junren Tonggu said in surprise, "Your disciple has such a strong killing intent. Does he have a grudge against Qingwei's disciple?" "Yes." Jun Changshan nodded seriously. In his opinion, the hatred between Yi Xingqian and Empress Lingyao was no less than the hatred of killing his father and stealing his wife. So, although it seemed like a battle today, it was actually a life and death battle, unless there was a reversal halfway. Tonggu. Perfected Qingwei said, "The battle between you and me is cancelled." Yi Xingqian's aura was very strong and his killing intent was too strong. She naturally didn't want her disciple to take risks. Canceling it is equivalent to admitting defeat, Junren Tonggu said. He didn't care about the process of the battle, only about winning or losing. Because he had just been played by Jun Changshao, he was eager to regain some face. It doesn't matter. At this point, for her disciple's safety, perfected Qingwei would rather admit defeat in front of the world. "Master." Empress Lingyao said, "I want to fight with him." Then, without waiting for Taoist Master Qingwei to speak, she took the initiative to land on Zanya Mountain. The clouds and mist that gathered around her dissipated, revealing a devastatingly beautiful face. "I'll go." Su Xiaomo exclaimed, "So beautiful." As expected of the number one empress of the Starfall continent, Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji thought to themselves. Before they had joined the sect of all times, Empress Lingyao had been a high and mighty deity to them. Now, other than being amazed by her beauty, they had no respect for her. In fact, they were filled with hostility. Under normal circumstances, when a top beauty appeared, it was inevitable that the main character's reaction would be emphasized. In fact, Goxing didn't even have a scene because he didn't have any thoughts at all. He even turned his head to ask about Shi Jingshuan's injuries after a glance. "Amazing, Jun Patriarch." Seeing this, an expert gave him a thumbs up. He's not bewitched by beauty and only cares about his lover. Such a man is extremely rare. Forcing one's imagination to fill in the gaps was the most fatal. The camera turned to Yi Xingqian, who was clenching his fists. His eyes were bloodshot as he raged, "It's been thousands of years and your appearance hasn't changed." "I haven't changed." Empress Lingyao said, "You've changed. This is all thanks to you. You allowed me to start all over again." Yi Xingqian was losing control of his emotions. He wanted nothing more than to punch this femme fatale into pieces. Empress Lingyao shook her head. "I don't mean that your body has changed, but your personality. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people supporting you in today's battle." Yi Xingqian fell into a short silence. He turned to look at the patriarch, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the other sect brothers, and a proud expression appeared on his face. "That's right. I've changed. I used to have no relatives, no friends, no friends. Today, I have a group of sect brothers who care for me in life and death." The most precious thing Yi Xingqian had gained since his rebirth was not his return to the peak, nor was it his entry into the truth-seeking realm. Instead, it was the drastic change in his personality and mentality. He had also become a member of the sect of all times. He had experienced family and friendship that he had never experienced before. "I'm not alone." She was not scolding him, but a true portrayal of him. Empress Lingyao said, "If you could have changed like this thousands of years ago, I wouldn't have spent so much effort to make you start all over again." "Spent so much effort?" Yi Xingqian sneered. "So you're saying that I have to thank you for my achievements today? What else? Don't flatter yourself." Yi Xingqian stepped to the side, his powerful qi of true spirit bursting forth. He clasped his hands together and squatted down. "Today, I'll send you to the afterlife. I'm the Emperor. I haven't used this title in a long time." Whoosh! Rainbow light gathered between his palms, stirring the surrounding space. Junior brother Yi is serious. The first move was the 7 profound dawn break. This made Li Qingyang and the others believe that the battle between the two would not last long. Xiu, right at this time, Yi Xingqian pushed his palms out, the explosive energy gathered in his palms dragging along the dazzling charge break, blasting towards Empress Ling Yao at a speed that could tear space apart. This move contained thousands of years of anger, its power was explosive, even He Wudi found it hard to believe. Whine! Whine! Empress Ling Yao was not going to sit still and wait for death. She waved her hands lightly, and layers of defensive enchantments formed in front of her. Boom! The 7 profound dawn break, enhanced by killing intent and anger, smashed through the enchantments like a flood breaking through a dam. All the martial artists were shocked speechless. The battle between Jun Changshao and Shi Jingxian just now was at most a normal sparring session, but Yi Xingqian's move was a death sentence. How much hatred, how much hatred. How much hatred, how much hatred. Xiu, Empress Ling Yao's figure flashed, dodging the 7 profound dawn break's bombardment. Then, she crossed her hands, and the surrounding space trembled, forming a cage that locked Yi Xingqian in. Ryu Sinan was surprised. A space-type martial art. Perfected Qin Wei was also stunned, obviously not expecting her disciple to use such an extremely rare martial art. TSK, TSK. Jun Changshao said, this woman has indeed broken through to the truth-seeking realm. Boom! Boom! Yi Xingqian, who was trapped in a cage-like barrier, madly attacked one side and quickly opened up an opening, causing it to completely collapse. He then took out his halberd and poured his true spirit force into it, forming a scorching light that pierced forward. Every time he attacked, his killing intent was bursting. Puchi. Suddenly, the sound of a sharp blade piercing through a body was heard. Everyone, including Jun Changshao, stared with wide eyes, because they saw Yi Xingqian holding the halberd from top to bottom, piercing the defenseless Empress Ling Yao's chest. My disciple! Perfected Qin Wei exclaimed. Yi Xingqian also stared blankly at Empress Ling Yao whose chest had been pierced so easily. Although her face was pained, she forced a smile and said, this should be where I stabbed you back then. That's right. The same place where death was inevitable. I wanted to have a good fight with you, but you've grown too fast. I really can't catch up, so I can only die in your hands in this way to end the grudge between us. Yi Xingqian's eyes were spitting fire. He was not pitying this woman because she was about to die, but because he was angry that she had died too easily. Night Emperor. Empress Ling Yao took out the secret manual with the words Taishen Sutra engraved on it and said, I have kept it safe for you for thousands of years, today. I return it to its rightful owner. I also hope you can forgive me, for the mistakes I've made in the past. Puchi. She took a step forward, and her body was completely pierced by the halberd. She smiled and raised her other hand, wanting to touch Yi Xingqian's face, but her mind could not support it. She slowly lowered her hand, half of her face buried in the arms of her former fiancé, and slowly closed her eyes until her soul left the 9 heavens. It's over. Jun Changshao said, the grudge between the two of them. The system roared, that's too simple, too casual, at least explain the reason, like whether or not that woman betrayed Yi Xingqian. Is that still important? If you don't explain it clearly, then you're a dog author. Ah! A mysterious power from the east shook the system until it howled, and it also made the hearts of the readers who were about to write this chapter go cold. They hurriedly retracted their thoughts and left comments. I love the author. Chapter 1671. The battle had barely begun when Empress Ling Yao had chosen to forfeit, dying to Yi Xingqian's halberd. The cultivators were all depressed. In the first round, Jun Changshao had surrendered. In the second round, Empress Lingyao had given up her life. How could they watch the battle in peace? Fake matches. Refund tickets. It's over. Jinren Tonggu's heart leapt to his throat. His disciple had been killed. Perfected Qin Wei must be furious. But when he looked over, he saw her calm expression. She sighed and turned to leave with tears in her eyes. She left just like that? Jinren Tonggu said incredulously. Her master, perfected Qin Wei, would be furious at Empress Lingyao's death. But as a witness, she had seen clearly that her disciple had wanted to die. How could she blame an outsider? Being killed and dying were two different concepts. Master. Far away from Zangye Mountain, the stooped elder looked up at the sky, tears streaming down his face. You're finally free. Empress Lingyao's death did not sadden Jun Changshao or the sect of all times. Because she had killed Yi Xingqian, it was only natural that she would be killed today. Debts must be repaid. A life for a life. That was an unchanging principle. However, Yi Xingqian held the halberd in his hand and looked at the lifeless corpse. His expression was blank and dazed. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't regretting it. He hadn't expected to kill this woman so easily. Since his rebirth, Yi Xingqian had been cultivating and growing stronger, all for the sake of killing Empress Lingyao. He had even imagined a fierce battle with her, but in the end, he had given up on resisting, and had even gone so far as to throw his life away. This wasn't what he wanted, because it was too simple. It was too boring. Puchi. Yi Xingqian pulled out his halberd. Empress Lingyao floated down like a withered flower, her beautiful face showing a sense of relief. Whoosh! A ball of flame flew over and enveloped the corpse. Yi Xingqian was afraid that this woman would use some method to fake her death, so he had to burn her bones and scatter her ashes to cut off any chance of clearing her name in the future. It was only after Empress Lingyao's body had been incinerated that he put away his weapon and landed on Zangye Mountain. The hatred that had been suppressed in his heart for a long time had completely dissipated. He felt more refreshed than before and the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Night Emperor. He actually smiled. The knot in his heart has been untied, and the demon in his heart has been removed, Jun Changshao said in a gratified manner. Xingqian will have greater achievements in the future. If these words came out of other people's mouths, they would probably need to think about it carefully. But if these words came out of the mouth of a cheat, they definitely had a bright future ahead of them. The grudge between Yi Xingqian and Empress Lingyao had come to a perfect end today. As for whether there were any hidden secrets in the matter, since Yi Xingqian was determined to die, there was no way to find out. However, the woman was right about one thing. She had once gone to the grotto to cultivate in seclusion just to fight with Yi Xingqian, but in the end, she had barely broken through to the truth-seeking realm. In 2 years, Yi Xingqian had already entered the upper truth-seeking realm. The difference between their realms was huge. Perhaps it was because of this that Empress Lingyao had decisively chosen to end it with her death after a short fight. In the place where Xingqian fell, Yi Xingqian did not fall. On Zangye Mountain, Yi Xingqian did not die. All the grudges, all the ill-fated relationships, were gone today. Phew! After walking down from the mountain, Yi Xingqian took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. He thought to himself, now I am no longer obsessed with hatred. I only want to pursue higher martial arts realms and protect my fellow disciples and sect from being bullied. Empress Lingyao's death did not make him lose his motivation, because there were more precious things in this world that were far above hatred, such as kinship and friendship among fellow disciples. The only thing missing was love between a man and a woman. Master. Shi Jingxian lowered her head and said with a red face, I have something to say to Jun Patriarch. With the help of the healing pill, her injuries had recovered significantly. Go. Gu Hongzhenren said kindly. He could tell that there was a story between his disciple and Jun Changshao, so he naturally would not urge her to leave with him. Humph. Junren Tonggu, who was standing aside, said grumpily, if my disciple didn't give in to your disciple, you wouldn't have one. Gu Hongjunren said indifferently, a loss is a loss. Don't make excuses. Bullshit. Junren Tonggu said, this is not a loss. She gave in. It seems that you are not convinced. Come on, why don't the two of us fight? Afraid of you? The two old men who did not see eye to eye at all became angry after a few words. Then, they drew a path and fought on Zanya Mountain. Boom! 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 Powerful energy exploded, and the scene was magnificent. However, no matter how exciting the fight was, the camera was still locked on Jun Changshao and Shi Jingxian, sadly reduced to the background. Palace Master Shi. Gosheng asked curiously, how are you the child of the dimension? Shi Jingxian sat down and kept her head down. It was obvious that she was a little nervous and shy. She said, Master said that I have the power of origin in my body. The power of origin? Jun Changshao said in surprise, the attribute that made you lose your mind. Yes. Shi Jingxian said, this power comes from the origin of the dimension. The possessor is the child of the dimension. I didn't expect Palace Master Shi to be the child of the dimension of the falling star continent. Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said with a smile, sorry. Shi Jingxian shook her head and said, I am not the child of the falling star continent. I heard from Master that the power of origin in my body is unusual and may come from the upper universe. Oh. Jun Changshao was stunned. The system said, it seems that this woman has a story that no one knows. Palace Master Shi, do you know what kind of dimension it is? Jun Changshao asked. I don't know. Shi Jingxian said with a sad expression, the power of origin is the essence of a dimension. If it is integrated into a martial artist's body, it means that the dimension will no longer exist. Jun Changshao understood. Since there was the power of origin in her body, her previous dimension might have been destroyed. No wonder she said that she had no parents and no relatives. However, Shi Jingxian looked up and said with a smile, Master said that if I can see into the third step, I can travel through the upper universe at will. Maybe I can find my homeland and use the power of origin to awaken the dimension. The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. The third step, how far away was that? It was undeniable that Shi Jingxian could break through to the truth-seeking realm in a short time. Her improvement speed was very fast, but it would definitely take a long time to see into the divine secret realm. Besides, looking for a dimension without any clues in the upper universe was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Right. Jun Changshao thought of something and said, I have the warship that the star spirit world invaded earlier. It can cross the upper universe regardless of the realm. Palace Master Shi can go with me. If you're lucky, you might be able to find it. Okay, Shi Jingxian said. Seeing her agree so readily, Jun Changshao was a little stunned. Shi Jingxian lowered her head and pinched the corner of her clothes. Back then, I refused your invitation and didn't ascend to the upper world with you. In the future, I will never refuse again. Damn! Su Xiaoma, who was eavesdropping, exclaimed, this is equivalent to confessing to the patriarch. Okay then. Jun Changshao said, I will inform you when we set off. Just come to the Sect of all times to meet me then. Okay. Shi Jingxian nodded with a smile on her face. Jun Changshao raised his hand, looked at Lao Litu, and cupped his hands. It's getting late. I'll take my disciples back to the Sect first. Goodbye, Palace Master Shi. Puff. Su Xiaoma spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 1672. Shi Jingxian left with Gu Hongzhenren. Although she was a little reluctant, she was mostly happy. happy that Jun Changshao could call out her name immediately after seeing her face. Master. Along the way, Shi Jingxuan's face lit up with joy. It's been a few decades and he still remembers me. Gu Hongzhenren was speechless. The stronger a martial artist was, the stronger their memory. Unless they lost their memory in a car accident, it was almost impossible for them to forget. Moreover, it had only been a few decades. I really don't know what my silly disciple is so happy about. Sigh. Gu Hongzhenren shook his head and thought to himself, the most difficult thing to understand in this world is the love between a man and a woman. Master. Shi Jingxian said, why do I feel like the heaven and earth attributes in the upper realm are stronger than before? That's because your state of mind has changed. Gu Hongzhenren said. Oh. Jun Changshao led his disciples back to the sect of all times on the ancient worship. However, he stood at the bow of the ship and pondered seriously. The scheming Empress Lingyao died just like that. She turned into ashes. The system said, she must be dead. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, this woman stole the Taishan Sutra and tricked the 9 great emperors into helping her ascend. This means that she values her realm and power very much. Why would she want to die so easily? The system said, the way I see it, Empress Lingyao knew that she couldn't beat Yixingchen, so she could only accept her fate. No. Suddenly, Jun Changshao slapped his forehead and said, after Yixingchen was killed, his soul was reborn. Since that woman also cultivated the Taishan Sutra, even if her body was destroyed, she could still be reborn, right? The system was speechless. Master. Jun Changshao hurriedly called for the Taishan elder and asked about the Taishan Sutra. After all, he was the one who created it. In the end, the answer he got was, it's true that I created the Taishan Sutra, but it doesn't have the ability to rebirth souls. No. Gosheng frowned. The old man from Taishan said, even in the upper realm, there is no martial art that can regenerate a martial artist's soul. How can I, a person who focuses on the study of formations, create such a heaven-defying technique? No. Jun Changshao rubbed his temples and said, since Shizuan's Heart Sutra doesn't have the effect of reviving a soul, how did Yixingchen manage to possess a body several thousand years later? Unless. System, what do you think? There must be something fishy about this. Inside the cabin. After a difficult decision, Yixingchen still took out the Taishan Sutra that still had his body fragrance. This secret manual meant a lot to him. If he hadn't obtained it, he wouldn't have died at the hands of Empress Lingyao, and he wouldn't have been reborn into the sect of all times, and he wouldn't have achieved what he had today. Now that I've broken through to the upper-level truth-seeking realm, what's the point of keeping it? Flames gradually rose in Yixingchen's hands, obviously intending to burn it to bid farewell to the past. However, just as he raised the Taishan true scripture, a letter slipped out from within and slowly floated to the ground. Yixingchen frowned. But his body took it honestly and locked onto the lines of beautiful words. Night Emperor. When you read this letter, I should be dead, so congratulations, you've gotten your revenge. Yixingchen's eyes flickered with anger. This woman left behind a suicide note before she died. Why did it feel like she was mocking him? In your past life, you were obsessed with martial arts and didn't understand the ways of the world, nor did you understand human relationships. I'm happy for you that you have so many fellow disciples in this life. This also proves that it was right to kill you back then. Seeing this line of words, Yixingchen almost burned the letter. It was right to kill me. Is it even human? Actually, there's one thing I really want to tell you in person, but I know how much you hate me, so I can only tell you in a letter after I die. The Taishan Sutra created by the Taishan old man doesn't have the ability to let a martial artist's soul be reborn. Some of the incantations written in it were actually deliberately modified. Seeing this, Yixingchen's expression froze. You may be very curious. Since you can't be reborn, why did you possess someone else's body? This is because you have a shocking identity that can shock the upper universe and even change the order of heaven and earth. Humph. Yi Xingqian thought to himself, who are you trying to fool? In the past, although Night Emperor was strong, his IQ obviously couldn't keep up. Now, under Jun Changxiao's guidance, he seemed to be a fool, but his IQ had basically reached the passing line. You may suspect that I'm lying to you, but it doesn't matter. Because when the day comes, you'll understand that everything I do is for you. Finally. I hope that you can become even stronger, until you have the power to shake the universe, so that you can fulfill those words I once said, all the land under the heavens belongs to the king, and all the people on the shores of the land are the king's subjects. Yi Xingqian's face was blank. Had he ever said this before? The only signature on the letter was Lingyao, and there was a hint of reluctance and longing in the tip of the pen. This woman's whitewashing skills are too bad. Yi Xingqian crumpled the letter into a ball. He had planned to burn it, but after a moment's hesitation, he put it away into his spatial ring. Xingqian. At this time, Jun Changxiao's voice rang out in his ear. Are you asleep? No. Come to the cockpit. No. No. In the cockpit, the Taixien elder carefully read the Taixien Sutra he had created. He said in surprise, the chants on the last 2 pages were not written by me. This martial art technique was above the divine tier on the Starfall continent. He had created it on a whim when he was studying the fortune-seizing array. He had personally written every word and every image on it, so he naturally remembered it clearly. Someone modified it? Jun Changxiao asked. That's right. Who modified it? You're asking me, but who am I supposed to ask? Jun Changxiao looked at the silent Yi Xingqian. After a long moment of hesitation, the latter took out the will left by Empress Lingyao. All the land under the heavens belongs to the king. All the people on the shores of the land are the king's subjects. Tsk tisk. After reading it, Jun Changxiao rubbed his chin and said, how arrogant and domineering. I didn't say anything about it, Yi Xingqian said. You didn't say anything about it in your past life. Maybe you did in your previous life, Jun Changxiao said. Yi Xingqian was stunned. Xingqian. Jun Changxiao patted him on the shoulder and said, if what Empress Lingyao said in the letter is true, you might really have an earth-shattering identity. That woman is very scheming. She knew she was going to die, so she purposely left a letter to disturb me. That's possible. Patriarch. Yi Xingqian said seriously, I just want to focus on martial arts and protect the sect of all times with my life. Jun Changxiao said, I'm very pleased. Go back and rest. This letter, stay here with me for now. Yes. After Yi Xingqian left, Jun Changxiao picked up the will and thought, the handwriting is quite beautiful. Doesn't the host find it familiar? A little, but I can't remember. Do I need to remind you? If you have something to say it quickly. The system didn't keep him in suspense and said, the host can take out a fragment of the 7 mysterious rays shard to take a look. This sentence was like a wake-up call. Jun Changxiao immediately slapped his forehead and said in surprise, no wonder it looked so familiar. It's very similar to the handwriting on the fragment. Chapter 1673. In the study. Jun Changxiao took out the 7 original volumes and compared them with the handwriting on the suicide note. He concluded that although they were not written by the same person, the writing style was very similar. Every world had a relatively independent civilization system, and the words and prophecies they created were all different. For example, the fallen star continent. For example, the upper realm. Their writing and language were completely different. In order to prevent the readers from deliberately learning the fallen star language or the upper realm language, they were considerate enough to translate it into Wuxia. System, what do you think? The writing style of the volumes and the suicide note are similar, which means that they should have lived in the same world and been influenced by the same civilization. I think so too. Jun Changxiao's expression became serious. The volumes were created by the Seven Profound Sage, who was also known as a martial arts legend. Empress Ling Yao came from the same plane as him, so her identity was not simple. That was not the main point. The main point was Yi Xingqian. From the contents of the suicide note, he had a shocking identity. Now that the woman's handwriting was similar to the Seven Profound Sages, could there really be a past life? Or perhaps, he had some sort of connection with such a super mighty being. Maybe. The system said seriously, Yi Xingqian might be the reincarnation of the Seven Profound Sage. Fine. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes and said, "You're so talkative. You can say whatever you want in the story is wrong." The system roared in exasperation, "Have I done anything wrong during this period of time? If you work hard every day, you won't be able to live." Of course. Jun Changxiao was also puzzled. The handwriting on the last few pages of the Taixien Sutra was very different from the suicide note. Who changed it without permission? In my opinion. The system said, if we find the person who deliberately added the incantation, we might be able to uncover Yi Xingqian's shocking identity. After comparing the suicide note and the volumes, Jun Changxiao came to a conclusion. Empress Ling Yao and the Seven Profound Sage must have been influenced by the same civilization, which was why their handwriting was similar. It was hard to confirm whether Yi Xingqian was the reincarnation of a powerful being, but at least it meant that the woman was not simple. Senior Gu's strength is already very terrifying. When he talks about the Seven Profound Saint, his face is filled with admiration. He even calls him a martial arts legend. If Empress Ling Yao is living in the same plane as him, her cultivation level should be quite high. He was still killed by Yi Xingqian in the end. Therefore, there must be something fishy about this. Perhaps it's just as the will said. Yi Xingqian's shocking identity will really shake the upper universe and change the order of the world. Jun Changxiao leaned against the chair and rubbed his temples. There's suddenly pressure. In the past, Yi Xingqian was nothing more than a reincarnated martial emperor. Now, from the looks of the will, there seemed to be a deeper pit. When the truth was revealed, would he and his sect be able to withstand the perilous waves? I'm fine. The system said, if you can't take it, then use a cheat. It's not like you haven't used it before. At night, Jun Changxiao sat in the main hall and looked up at the sky. Although I have reached the peak of martial arts in the upper realm, in the vast universe, I am but an insignificant star. Rose of Flowers walked over and sat beside him. She flicked the hair in front of her forehead and said, to others, my husband is an insignificant star. But to everyone in the sect of all times, you can guide the way forward when you are lost. Jun Changxiao said bitterly, the more it is like this, the more pressure there is. If he was alone, he would not care about life or death, but he had the sect behind him and a group of disciples. Walking on the path to becoming a powerful being was always like walking on thin ice, and also like carrying 100,000 mountains on his back. I will always be by your side, my husband. Rose of Flowers wanted to tilt her head and lean over, but she was afraid that he would push her away, so she could only sit quietly where she was. The two of them did not speak. They looked at the stars the whole night. Yi Xingqian, who was sitting cross-legged in the room, felt uneasy. It was as if someone was constantly whispering in his ear, all lands under the heavens belong to the king, and all lands by the king's shores belong to the king. Ah! He hugged his head and roared, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. The next day, Yi Xingqian walked out of the room with dark circles under his eyes. Normally, after taking revenge, he should be in a good mood. However, after reading the will, he was confused and did not practice martial arts systematically for a few days. Fuck. After Jun Changxiao learned about it, he was furious. Could this be a trick that woman deliberately played before she died to trick Yi Xingqian into abandoning his martial arts? Abandoning his martial arts. He underestimated Night Emperor's determination. Another day passed. He quickly adjusted his mentality and began to practice martial arts more diligently. As for the previous troubles, they were long gone. Jun Changshao let out a sigh of relief. He personally supervised the warship construction process and thought about how to complete the main mission, break free from the restrictions, and start the era of space exploration. The mission requirement is to reach the immortal sect level. Without the recognition of the world, it will be difficult to complete. The system said. You gave me a reminder. Jun Changshao said, it's time to think of a way to increase the level of the sect. Because there was no certification organization, the sect of all times gave the readers the impression that it was still at the mysterious sect level. However, in reality, it was already an extraordinary existence that destroyed the 10 great immortal sects. Qingyang. Jun Changshao walked out of the main hall and said loudly, change the sign on the gate to the 10,000 ancient immortal sect, and then spread the news to all the major cities. Yes. Li Qingyang entered his interspatial ring and began to choose different signs. Why did he choose? Because there were signs with the words 10,000 ancient true sect, 10,000 ancient Dao sect, and 10,000 ancient divine sect. It was clear that they had already prepared and could replace them at any time. A moment later, a brand new sign was hung at the gate. The words 10,000 ancient immortal sect carved on it were powerful and had the aura of swallowing mountains and rivers. At the same time, a new announcement appeared on the signboards of the major cities in the higher world. The content was, from today onwards, the sect of all times will be promoted to the celestial level. If anyone is not satisfied, they can come to the 10,000 ancient immortal mountain to talk. It was obvious that this was what Jun Changshao had said because it was too meaningful. As expected. They are calling themselves Immortal Sect. The various cultivators were not too surprised after seeing the announcement. After all, to be able to destroy the 10 great immortal sects, the sect of all times was worthy of the celestial level. It was reasonable for them to add another level above the immortal sects. Even if there was a higher level, Go Sheng would not use it. This was because the main storyline quest said that it had to be a celestial sect. If he decided to call himself a divine sect or heaven sect, it would be useless if he did not receive recognition. Upper World Calendar. Who knew how many years had passed? The 10 great immortal sects had become history, and the 10,000 ancient immortal sect was the strongest. Ding! Main storyline quest completed. Calculating. Jun Changshao, who was in charge of supervising the construction of the battleship, was stunned when he heard the crisp sound. He ordered the disciples to put up the sign, 10,000 ancient immortal sect, and announced it to the public. The main storyline quest was suddenly calculated. That was way too simple, wasn't it? If he had known, he would have changed it at the start. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Jun Changshao put his hands on his waist and laughed without restraint. Zhen Dejuan and the others looked over and then calmly continued to study the battleship. After all, they were used to it. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the main storyline quest. You have received a generous amount of martial arts experience points. Ding! The host has successfully broken through to the half-step divine secret realm. Whoosh whoosh. On this day, the sky above the sect of all times was suddenly covered by a vast and majestic attribute. It continued to extend outwards and covered more than half of the plain. The history books of the future recorded that the patriarch of the sect of all times peeked into the divine secret realm and created an eternal legend in the higher world. Chapter 1674. Would the main mission be completed just by hanging up the 10,000 ancient immortal sect plaque? Sorry. Jun Changshao was overthinking. The reason why he suddenly entered the settlement was because he had previously destroyed the 10 major immortal sects and used his actions to prove his strength. Therefore, he was able to trigger the completion of the mission after declaring himself a top sect. Whoosh whoosh. Vast and majestic special attributes appeared from the sect of all times and gradually enveloped half of the upper realm. Jun Changxiao's soul was mixed in it, and he could deeply feel the breathing of every blade of grass and tree. It was as if his entire person had been sublimated. Was this the divine secret state? Jun Changxiao enjoyed that feeling very much, and a happy expression gradually appeared on his face. Come out and take a look. Su Xiaomua shouted, Patriarch has advanced again. This guy's tone was not excited at all. It could be seen that Go Sheng's breakthroughs were too frequent and too sudden, causing him and many disciples to gradually lose the novelty. They even thought that there was a problem if they did not see Patriarch's progress for a period of time. However, the outside world could not remain calm. The momentum of the advancement affected half of the upper realm. Any martial artist who was disturbed could feel an extremely strong pressure. In the extreme cave abode, Masato Kitano said in surprise, your disciple has peeked into the third step. Jinren Tonggu was so shocked that he was speechless. When he first met his disciple, he had barely entered the revolving core realm, and even cultivated for 2 years without any progress. Now, he had touched the realm that almost no one in the upper realm had reached. It was like a dream. Surprise. A huge surprise. After a brief shock, Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano sat down in unison. The advancement aura released by Jun Changxiao contained the supreme mystery. It was a very good opportunity for them, who were at the peak of the truth-seeking realm, to learn from it and find the opportunity to enter the third step. Master. In a beautiful place, Shi Jingxian pulled away the black robe that covered her face, and a bright smile appeared on her face. Jun Patriarch is about to break through. Gu Hongjinren's mouth twitched violently. He had won the promise of 10 years. However, he understood that Jinren Tonggu's disciple was truly outstanding. No, he was truly a monster. Why was old man Tonggu's life so good that he actually took in such a disciple? However, if Gu Hongjinren knew that being Jun Changxiao's master meant that he had to be prepared to take the blame at any time, he probably wouldn't have the mentality he had now. The advancement lasted for a whole day. Those who had reached the peak of the truth-seeking realm all benefited from it. As for whether they could take half a step forward, it depended on their own luck. Creak. The door opened. Jun Changxiao walked out glowing. His appearance didn't change much from before. He was still handsome, but his temperament had changed completely. Every move he made seemed to contain the profound meaning of heaven and earth. AI. Jun Changxiao sighed and said, it's fine if you don't give me any rewards after putting in so much effort to complete the main mission, but you only took a small step forward. Be content. The system said, for most people at the peak of the truth-seeking state, I'm afraid they won't be able to take this step until they die. That's true. Jun Changxiao was relieved. Looking at his growth, he had relied on cheating to advance. What else was there to be dissatisfied with? Ding! As the host has successfully completed the upper realm's main mission, the soul bomb will be removed immediately. The system notification sounded again. A smile appeared on Jun Changxiao's face. It really didn't matter if his realm increased. As long as he could remove this bomb that would deduct time even if he squatted in the toilet for a while, that was what he would be satisfied with. Congratulations, host, you've completed another, shut up. Jun Changxiao would never forget that he had successfully ascended to the upper realm and passed through the 10,000 Thunder Formation. Before he could celebrate, a mouthful of poison milk triggered a new version of the upper realm's main mission, so this time, he had to stop it. It was very successful. A few days had passed, but the main mission still hadn't been triggered. Awesome! Jun Changshao walked out of the room in high spirits. He saw that the sky was bluer, and the water was clearer. The system said, without the restriction of the main mission, the host has lost his goal. In the future, he won't focus on developing the sect. Bullshit. Jun Changshao sat in the stone pavilion and picked up a chess piece on the table. With a serious look, he said, the astral world hasn't been dealt with yet. How can I lose my goal? He almost destroyed the falling star continent. He had to make this distant plane pay a painful price. Patriarch. Zhen Dejuan transmitted his voice, another battleship has been completed. Please come and inspect it. Jun Changshao got up and went to the shipyard of the formation hall. He saw that the second battleship had been completed. Because it was built with high-grade ores, it looked indestructible and even emitted a kind of power. Master. Let's name this battleship Taishian. Hearing this, the Taishian old man's eyes were filled with gratified tears. The first battleship should have been named after him, but he shamelessly changed it to Changshao. How many more battleships can we build with the remaining ores? 8. There are only 10 in total. There's no choice. There's too little heavenly spirit quenching stone. Jun Changshao was speechless. The first fleet of the astral spirit realm had invaded, and there were 50 battleships alone. Not to this extent, at least half of them. In the end, there were only 10 battleships. It was not spectacular enough. It's okay. The system said, you can buy them from the store. Scram. It was impossible to buy them from the store. After all, completing the main mission did not give him any reputation points. He did not have much left, so he had to be frugal. You can go to the major planes to buy ores. While heading to the astral spirit realm, you can build more battleships until you reach there and form a huge fleet of battleships. It's more appropriate to change buying to robbing. You're a thief, and you still have the nerve to talk about me. How can it be considered stealing when you buy something with 3 values? Fuck, you're even more shameless than me. The construction of the battleships was still in full swing. However, with the previous 2 production experiences and a fixed template furnace, the efficiency was greatly improved. In just a year, all 8 battleships were completed. In terms of volume and tonnage, the battleships developed by the sect of all times were larger and heavier than those in the astral spirit realm. The material was from heavenly spirit quenching stone, and the defensive performance was even better. Testing of 5 extremes completed. Testing of cool breeze completed. Testing of drizzle completed. Testing of spirit beast completed. Testing of war knight completed. Outside the array formation peak, Shangguan Xinyao led the team to carefully check the formation system of each battleship to ensure that it could be activated successfully. It was not difficult to tell from the names that some of the battleships were named after the higher-ups of the sect. For example, 5 extremes corresponded to evil Saint Ding Xinguang, while cool breeze corresponded to love expert Wei Qingfeng. As for drizzle, spirit beast, and war knight, they corresponded to Drizzle Hall, Spirit Beast Hall, and War Knight Hall respectively. Of course. There were also King of Hell and Rakshasa, which corresponded to Jiangya and the Black and White Rakshasa. Jun Changshao did not pay much attention to the names of the battleships. The names of the higher-ups were mostly based on rhymes. For example, the Ning brothers joined the sect early, so they did not name them because it did not match. Testing of rows completed. After receiving the report from Team 10, Shangguan Xinyao sent a telepathic message. Patriarch, all 10 battleships have been tested. They can be activated and leave the upper realm at any time. Jun Changshao, who was sitting outside the hall, clasped his hands together and rested his chin on them. He grinned. The era of spaceflight is about to begin. The upper universe, the thousands of dimensions, prepare for the arrival of my ancient fleet. Kikik. Kik. If the various dimensions heard this sinister laughter, they would definitely cry out in sorrow. Boss, please let us go. Chapter 1675. After testing the warship, Jun Changshao was not in a hurry to leave the upper realm with his disciples. Instead, he decided to stay for a while and settle his affairs. Patriarch Li Luoqiu reported, the teleportation portals in the major cities have been set up and can be officially operated. During this time, the members of the Formation Hall had set up teleportation portals in many famous cities to make it convenient for martial artists to reach their destinations as quickly as possible. Jun Changshao had developed in the upper realm for less than 10 years. In terms of feelings, he could not compare to those of the falling star continent. But after all, he had witnessed the strength of the sect, so he had done something before leaving. Or perhaps it was to make up for the forbidden area that he had once destroyed. Of course. Setting up the portals would consume a lot of magnetite, and it would require funds to maintain them. Using the portals would definitely require a corresponding fee. He could benefit the people and earn some money at the same time. Why not? Master. Jun Changshao said seriously, don't you want to think about it? After completing the main mission, he had visited the Extreme Doctrine Cave many times in order to rope Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano into the sect. I've been indifferent to fame and fortune all my life. I treat money like dirt, so, smack. Without waiting for him to finish, Jun Changshao placed the secret book of the Boundless Thousand Shadows spell on the table and said, this is a kind of martial art that can condense doppelgangers and help increase one's realm. As long as Master and Senior Chi join the sect, you can practice it at will. Brat. Jinren Tonggu said with a straight face, are you insulting your master's firm Taoist heart? Ding. Sect members, 100042. Ding. Sect members, 100043. Jun Changshao walked out of the Extreme Doctrine Cave with the 2 entry forms. Looking at the blue sky, a serious smile gradually appeared on his face. Actually, with the sect of all times' current strength, there was no need to forcefully recruit Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano. However, they had been under their protection all these years, so before they left, they would definitely give them some benefits to express their gratitude. Both of them were at the peak of the truth-seeking realm. Obviously, mystic stones and Taoist stones could not help them, so they could only give them martial arts. However, due to the limitation of the system, they could not practice martial arts unless they joined the sect. Old friend. Masato Kitano carefully read the Grand Kiliacosm Shadow Clone Art. His eyes flickered with excitement as he said, this martial art is incredible. Perhaps we can touch the 3rd step in our lifetime. Jinren Tonggu stared blankly for a while before he said, why didn't he show us such a good martial art technique earlier? Go Xing could not be blamed. Back then, he had invited the 2 of them to join the sect of all times, but they had repeatedly rejected him on the grounds that he was indifferent to fame and fortune. After leaving the extreme cavern, Jun Changshao made a trip to the Misty Immortal Mountain and gave the 7 sages of the Misty Immortal Mountain many Dao stones and immortal stones. Stone Statue Domain. Jun Changshao sat in the main hall and said, I will be leaving the upper realm in a while. I will leave the clan to you all. The expressions on the faces of the 3 ministers and 9 ministers were a little interesting. The former patriarch had just left, and the new patriarch was also leaving. What was going on? However, he understood. The patriarch was very young and strong. Staying in the upper realm would only limit him. Only by traveling the universe could he become stronger. After making arrangements for the Stone Statue clan, Jun Changshao came to the Dragon clan and asked if Little Dragon was willing to follow him to conquer the Sea of Stars. This disciple is willing. Long Outyan summoned the 3 Dragon Kings that day and ordered them to be in charge of the internal affairs of the Dragon clan. Then, without looking back, he followed Jun Changshao to the sect of all times. He did not miss the Dragon Emperor and only hoped to follow the Patriarch to conquer the world. A few days later. Shi Jingxian, who was dressed in a black robe, arrived at the Sect of all times. Looking at the familiar buildings and familiar disciples, her emotions seemed to have drifted to the past. Palace Master Shi. Rose of Flowers smiled and said, "Long time no see." Shi Jingxian hurriedly lowered her head, as if she did not dare to look at this woman. "My husband has a strong personality. I'm afraid only Palace Master Shi can make him admit defeat." Rose of Flowers said. Coincidentally, Jun Changshao came to the main hall. After hearing this, he cursed in his heart, "It must be little Mo who leaked it out. It's not like it's something that can't be seen." The system said, "Why is the host suddenly nervous?" "Who's nervous?" Just now, the heartbeat rate was once per second. Now, the heartbeat rate is 3 times per second. "You still say you're not nervous?" Jun Changshao said, "Only a bored guy like you would deliberately check the heartbeat rate of others." Hee hee. The system had a face of disdain, although it had no face. The atmosphere in the main hall was very awkward. Rose of Flowers and Shi Jingxian did not communicate anymore. Jun Changshao could not stand it anymore. He walked in from outside and cupped his hands. "Palace Master Shi, we're honored by your presence. Please forgive us for not going out to meet you. I have internal affairs to deal with. I'll have to trouble my husband to entertain Palace Master Shi." Rose of Flowers tactfully found an excuse to leave. The awkward atmosphere was eased. Phew. Shi Jingxian breathed a sigh of relief. Her palms were sweating. In terms of cultivation, she was not much weaker than Rose of Flowers. However, she was particularly nervous when they met. "Palace Master Shi." Jun Changshao sat down and said, "Have you arranged everything?" "Yes." Shi Jingxian nodded and said, "We're just waiting for Jun Patriarch to set off. We'll set off the day after tomorrow." This was the auspicious day that Jun Changshao specially picked. "Oh, right." He asked, "Have your eyes healed?" When they were at Zanya Mountain, Gosheng found that this woman was not wearing glasses. "Master found a lot of heavenly treasures and helped me recover my normal vision," Shi Jingxian said. "I see." Jun Changshao said, "The accommodation has been arranged. It's still the same place." "Thank you. We're old friends. Don't be so polite." 2 days later. 100,000 disciples gathered at the main peak's martial arts practice field. Ta! Jun Changshao walked out of the main hall and said loudly, "Are you ready?" "Ready." Everyone shouted in unison. "Get on the ship." "Yes." The disciples entered 10 warships made of heavenly spirit-quenching ore and then slowly flew towards the sky. Buzz. At the same time, the Sect of all times was shrouded in flowing light. It was impossible to bring the Iron Bone Mountain with them on this trip to the universe, so they could only seal it temporarily. As for the various internal martial arts facilities, they were naturally all moved into the warships. The disciples could still use them to cultivate during interstellar travel. "Let's go." Jun Changshao, who was sitting in Eternal, ordered. The 11 warships carrying the 100,000 disciples spewed out energy light from their tails and then disappeared into the deep space. "Your disciple has left." Masato Kitano said outside the extreme cave abode. Junrin Tonggu sighed and said, "To him, the upper realm is probably just an inconspicuous resting place in the long journey of life." Although the two of them had joined the Sect of all times, they did not leave together. The reason was that they were old. The matters of exploring the universe should be left to the younger generation. In the vast upper universe, the 11 warships led by Eternal were moving rapidly. "Patriarch, where are we going?" "The Mountain Sea Realm." Chapter 1676. Although the Upper Realm and the Mountain and Sea Realm both belonged to the Azure Sea system, they were separated by a great distance. Without special tools, it would take at least a few decades for a half-step celestial realm cultivator to get there. Fortunately, Jun Changshao had an advanced battleship. Based on the speed and distance, he estimated that they would reach their destination in 2 months. Of course. The faster they went, the more fuel they used. They had only flown for 2 or 3 days, but the 11 battleships had used up millions of Dao stones. Sitting in the main cabin, Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, "I hope the mountain and sea realm has similar resources. Otherwise, even the Azure Sea system won't be able to fly out." As expected. The system said, "They're going to be robbers." "Robbers my ass." Jun Changshao said, "I'll trade with them." Although Go Sheng was a bit shameless, he definitely wouldn't do something like robbing. So, he planned to be a plain merchant for now and trade things of similar value for energy. Bah! The system said, "He's definitely a profiteer." How so? To be used as a battleship's energy source, it had to be at least Dao stones. This kind of thing was extremely precious in any plane. What could he take out to trade? "You don't have to worry about it." Jun Changshao said, "I have my ways." The 11 battleships sailed in an orderly manner in the vast universe. The disciples entered various martial arts facilities to cultivate as usual. They didn't slack off because of the interstellar travel. Second senior brother. Are you going to the life and death secret realm? Let's go. Li Qingyang and Su Xiaoma entered the cabin that contained the life and death secret realm. The interior design of the battleship was very user-friendly. Not only were there cabins for living, there were also cultivation rooms, cafeterias, and karaoke rooms for singing. Ah ah! Jun Changshao held the microphone and sang loudly. Ryu Sinan, Gong Sun Ho, and Bailey Qianqiu all lay on the ground, either bleeding from their orifices or foaming at the mouth. At first, when the patriarch called them over, the 3 of them were quite puzzled. Why did the disciples purposely avoid them? Now, they finally knew the reason. This guy's singing was deadly. After a series of cries and screams, the 3 demon exterminators were sent to the infirmary for emergency treatment. Jun Changshao then returned to his residence. His consciousness entered his interspatial ring as he retrieved the supreme-grade goods that he had received as a reward for completing the mission. "You finally remembered," the system said. Buzz. Jun Changshao raised his palm and gently placed it on the supreme merchandise. After a golden light rippled out, a notification sounded in his ears, "Ding! Congratulations to the host for unlocking the main mission. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining a soul bomb." Go Sheng's expression froze instantly. Ha ha ha. The system laughed out loud without any restraint. During this period of time, Jun Changshao had not allowed him to speak at all. He was worried that the poison milk would take effect. In the end, he had obtained a supreme item. Not only had he obtained a main mission, but he had also obtained a soul bomb. It could be said that he had arranged for himself. "You can't play like this." Go Leftover hugged his head, his face filled with despair. Sigh. The system comforted him, this might be the host's fate, ha 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 ha, he did not disappoint. The main quest came again. The content was to dominate the upper universe. It's over. Seeing that there were only 6 simple words on the mission board, Jun Changshao's expression froze. The previous 3 main quests had a time limit. If he could not complete them, he would activate the soul bomb. This time, there was no time limit. That's not right. Jun Changshao was puzzled. If there's no time limit, why did you bind the soul bomb to me? As he spoke, he waved his hand and took out a soul bomb that looked like a brick. When he saw the words Upper World Edition written on it, he suddenly realized. This is the soul bomb that I dispelled earlier. The system could no longer laugh. Ha ha ha. This time, it was Jun Changshao's turn to laugh heartily. The main quest had no time limit, and it even gave him a soul bomb. Wouldn't he be able to do the old trick and directly blow up the astral spirit world? I understand now. The system said, no wonder you wanted to go to the mountain and sea realm to find Gu Zhaoxi. You were missing someone to carry the bomb. Jun Changshao retracted his smile and said seriously, I won't let my brother repeat the same mistake. Previously, Gu Zhaoxi sacrificed himself and blew up the 9 battleships that he prepared, which made him suffer for a long time. Therefore, such a tragedy where someone had to be sacrificed must not happen again. I hope so. Dominate the upper universe. Jun Changshao looked at the words on the mission board again and touched his chin. Does the main quest want me to dominate the universe? It's difficult. The system said, no chance. Jun Changshao agreed. Although he was invincible in the upper universe, there were thousands of planes in the vast universe. If he gathered all of them together, there would definitely be divine arcanum. With his current strength, he would definitely be beaten like a dog if he dominated the upper universe. Fortunately, Jun Changshao said with relief, there's no time limit. I can slowly develop. Patriarch. At this moment, a voice sounded in his ear. The star map has found a plane nearby. Jun Changshao rushed to the main control room and found a light spot flashing on the screen. It was not too far away from the fleet. Let's go in and take a look. Yes. Whoosh. 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 The 11 battleships accelerated at the same time and flew toward the first plane they found during their interstellar travel. They could vaguely see that the world floating in the universe seemed to be trembling. Chapter 1677. The Scarlet Hell World. It was a world close to the upper realm. The weather here was hot, and the earth and rocks were all red. It looked like hell, so it was named the Scarlet Hell. The martial artists living in the Scarlet Hell world mainly cultivated the fire element, but due to the nature of the world, the strongest realm was only at the lower level of the truth-seeking realm. Therefore, in terms of the level of the world, there was obviously a big gap between it and the upper realm. In fact, the upper realm was not weak. When the third fleet of the star spirit world invaded, it was described as a quasi-second class, which meant that there were third class, fourth class, and even lower. Whoosh! One day, a stream of light quietly passed through the spatial barrier and landed between the mountains and rivers that seemed to be burning. It was none other than Jun Changshao. He did not fly in with 11 battleships. After all, it was easy for the locals to misunderstand and define him as an invader. Whoosh! He released his spiritual sense and spread it for thousands of miles. Tisk, tisk. Jun Changshao said, the fire element here is particularly strong. The system said, the other elements are relatively weak. It should be related to the hot environment. I'm afraid it will be difficult to contain martial arts resources such as mystical stones. Jun Changshao's eyes showed a hint of disappointment. Not necessarily. The system said, a world with a single element will often produce extreme ores or resources. Makes sense. Jun Changshao put on a face-changing mask and a set of gray robes. Very soon, he transformed into an old faker who was roaming the Jianghu. Then, he went straight to a city 1,000 miles away. What he needed to do now was to understand this world and whether there were resources that could be used as fuel for power. He chose to disguise himself because he was afraid that his peerless beauty would cause a huge commotion. Haha. The system laughed dryly. Kill. Kill. After traveling for hundreds of miles, he heard angry roars. Jun Changshao released his spiritual sense and found that hundreds of thousands of soldiers were divided into 2 teams in the distance. They were fighting bravely on the battlefield. The blood made the ground even redder, and the smell of blood floated in the air. The soldiers participating in the battle did not have high realms. Judging from their aura, they seemed to be comparable to Wu Xing's level. Good. Jun Changshao said, this plane's level is definitely not high. An army of hundreds of thousands of Wuxia size was indeed terrifying in the lower realm, but in the upper realm, it appeared to be very insignificant. Even a random disciple from a sect could easily deal with it. Jun Changshao had no interest in watching the newbies pecking at each other. He continued to head towards the city he had locked onto. However, after traveling for a while, they discovered that two armies were facing each other. Does this plane like to fight? Jun Changxiao's eyes were filled with surprise. He released his spiritual thoughts and covered half of the Scarlet Hell sector. In the end, he captured hundreds of battlefields of different sizes. The environment was already a little bad, and the locals were fighting all over the map. Could such a chaotic world nurture powerful martial arts resources? AI. Go Sheng shook his head and said, I'm afraid we've made a wasted trip. Not long after, he stopped in front of the city gate that he had locked in advance. Because the entire city was made of red ore, the towering city wall looked like it was burning crazily. The warriors coming in and out were talking. Because of the different language systems, Jun Changshao did not understand a word. Do you need an interpreter? What do you think? Whoosh, suddenly, a light flashed in Jun Changxiao's sea of consciousness. All kinds of symbols, gestures, and numbers flooded in crazily. When everything was restored, he heard the passers-by talking in Wuxia. The Iron Might army of the great heavenly kingdom has taken down a few more cities. In my opinion, the Changyuan kingdom is probably going to be destroyed. Sai, the kingdom that was once powerful enough to sweep across the world is finally going to decline. Decline after the peak, it will never change. Kingdom. Jun Changshao touched his chin and said, this world is dominated by countries. When he took an identity token from a passerby and successfully sneaked into the city called Zanhua City and heard the passers-by talking about the war, he was even more certain of his guess. That's right. The Scarlet Hell sector was a plane dominated by countries. There were families, nobles, royals, and royalty here, but there were no sections. The analysis is out. The system said, this place is called the Scarlet Hell sector. It has a population of 60 billion. 10,000 years ago, a peerless hero appeared and rose from nothing. In the end, he unified the entire world and established the Blue Waves Empire. And then? The Blue Waves Empire ruled the Scarlet Hell sector for nearly 10,000 years. Later, there were internal conflicts, and kingdoms broke away one after another. They each did their own thing and fought against each other. The Blue Waves Empire has long existed in name only. Are there any martial arts resources? Jun Changshao was not interested in the rise and fall of an empire. Yes. The system said, this world is rich in martial arts resources called Fire Stone, which is also the most common currency at present. It contains an extremely majestic fire attribute. Perhaps it can be used as an energy source. In fact, even if it did not explain, Jun Changshao had already guessed it. Because along the way from the main street, he found that many shops were named XX Scarlet Stone Shop. Yushang Scarlet Stone Shop. It was the largest shop in Zanhua City. As soon as Jun Changshao walked in, he felt that the fire attribute inside was stronger than outside, so he was even more curious about the majestic fire attribute of the fire stone. Dear customer. A beautiful woman was in charge of welcoming him. She smiled and said, do you want to buy some fire stones? Yes. Please come in. The woman was very polite and did not deliberately ignore Go Sheng because of his ordinary clothes. It could be seen that this shop really treated customers as gods. Dear customer. My shop mainly sells first class, second class, and third class fire stones. Which one do you want? There are also different classes. When Jun Changshao said this, the woman looked at him with surprise. Everyone knew that fire stones were divided into different classes. How could there be people in the world who did not know? Jun Changshao also realized the problem and explained awkwardly, Jun grew up in the mountains and knows little about the outside world. The woman understood and patiently explained, fire stones are divided into 3 classes. First class is the best and third class is the worst. Definitely first class. How many do you need? Can you take out one for June to see first? Alright, please wait a moment. The woman stood up and left. After a while, she came back with a box and placed it on the table. She gently opened it, revealing a red crystal the size of an apple. Jun Changshao quietly released his spiritual sense and fused it with the crystal. Feeling the extremely pure fire attribute, he thought to himself, this fire attribute is extremely violent. If it's used as a source of energy, it should be able to replace the Tao stone. On the whole, the fire stone could not be compared to the Tao stone. After all, it had a single attribute. However, the driving device inside the warship preferred violent energy. Only then would it be able to bring about a stronger impact. Dear customer. The woman smiled and said, how many do you need? Jun Changshao stood up, patted his butt and said, I'm just looking around, goodbye. With that, he left. The woman was stunned for a long time before she thought to herself, is this person sick? Chapter 1678. The first-class fire stone of the Scarlet Hell World was very suitable for energy, but Jun Changshao did not buy it because he had no money. Of course, Tao stones were more comprehensive than fire stones, but this world focused on fire-type martial arts. If he took it out for exchange, they would definitely not want it, so he could only think of ways to earn it. In fact, with Jun Changxiao's strength, no one in the entire Scarlet Hell world could stop him, let alone the honorable Martial City. However, what was the difference between this and a bandit? Along the way, Jun Changxiao had indeed robbed a lot of things, but he could honestly say that he had never done anything like robbing for no reason. If there were, please give me an example. If you say it, I'll seal the book and not write anymore. Some might use the Forbidden Land as an example. However, it was an ownerless thing that was nurtured by heaven and earth, not a public facility paid for by official organizations. What's wrong with me taking it with my own ability? If the Forbidden Land was public property, then what about the various mineral veins? If the major sects could not rob it, how could they develop? Moreover, the Forbidden Land was dangerous. 6 or 7 out of 10 people who entered died. Although Jun Changxiao had destroyed it and caused the majority of people to lose their cultivation environment, he had also unknowingly saved many lives from becoming moths. Was it right to ask him to destroy the Forbidden Land to save lives in a world where the strong preyed on the weak? Of course. Jun Changxiao's original intention was to strengthen the sect, not to save lives. However, what he did indeed prevent many martial artists from dying in the Forbidden Land in the future. This was undeniable and unquestionable. Gosheng never thought of himself as a good person. For example, in the plain battlefield, he crazily extorted the martial artists of the mainland. His behavior seemed excessive, but in fact, he allowed them to exchange money for safety and smoothly return home to reunite with their families. Good. Wasn't it a happy ending? Did he have to mold Jun Changxiao into a hero who did everything for the country and the people without asking for anything in return? Yes. When the first fleet of the astral spirit world invaded without a mission, did he not step forward bravely? Because of the Dragon Clan's use of the system's power, Gu Tianqing and his wife were lured to the upper realm, thus avoiding a world catastrophe. Throughout Jun Changxiao's development from the Starfall continent to the upper realm, he and the sect of all times were the ones who turned the tide every time there was a crisis. Otherwise, the Demon Lord would still be fighting against the 10 major immortal sects, or perhaps he would have been destroyed by the astral spirit realm and become cosmic dust. Don't say that Gosheng's values are wrong. Other than having a cheap mouth and a strange laugh, when had he ever done anything that offended the heavens and reason? I also hope that some of the readers can maintain a pure heart of ridicule, and not ridicule too much and be unable to extricate themselves from their own imaginations, and see Jun Changshao as a complete villain. That would be unfair to him. A certain reader, he is a scumbag. Author, +1. Very good. There's motivation. Jun Changshao was completely unaware of the problem with his values. He had actually explained so many words, and at this moment, his eyes were shining. From the upper realm to the astral spirit realm, he had to cross many galaxies. The energy problem had to be solved. Otherwise, he would run out of fuel while flying, and it would be awkward to be stranded in the endless universe. However, how could he earn money? Jun Changshao walked aimlessly on the street and began to think about how to obtain first-class fire stones. Boom! Boom! At this moment, the sound of fighting came from afar, and rolling heat waves roared. Isn't fighting prohibited in the city? Jun Changshao released his spiritual senses and found a disheveled martial artist gathering fire attributes at the end of the street. He was crazily beating up passers-by, his eyes were red, as if he had fallen into madness. Sigh. The middle-aged man next to him shook his head and said, "Another one has gone crazy." Again. Jun Changshao asked curiously, "Friend, is this person sick?" "No. If he's not sick, why is he crazy?" The middle-aged man glanced at him and found that the decoration was simple, so he said in a bad mood, "Any martial artist who takes fire stones can fall into madness, don't you know?" Jun Changshao was silent. Die! Die! At the end of the street, the martial artist with red eyes was like a mad bull, rampaging on the street. Although the passers-by avoided him, they still inevitably suffered heavy injuries. "If you don't want to die, quickly get out of the way." The middle-aged man reminded him indifferently, and he was already far away. In a short period of time, all the martial artists on the street avoided him. Although there was panic on their faces, it was not too obvious. It was mainly because they had experienced a lot and were used to it. Moreover, they knew that soon, the Imperial Guards would appear and kill the crazy person on the spot. Wait. Why didn't the guy in the gray coat hide? The passers-by who had hidden in advance looked at Jun Changshao who was standing still. Some people wanted to kindly remind him, but they were afraid of alarming the crazy martial artist, so they could only swallow their words. Die! Die! The crazy person could not find a target on the street, so he directly rushed toward Jun Changshao. Whine! Whine! On the light screen of Eternal, the real-time scene on the street of honored Martial City was displayed. Sun Bukong. Jun Changshao's voice rang out, "Is this person sick?" Sun Bukong hurried over to check, and purposely enlarged the image, so that he could see the nose hair of the crazy martial artist clearly. However, before he could make a judgment, Miao Saifeng, who was drinking tea beside him, said, "This person has been poisoned by fire poison, and will die in 15 minutes. Fire poison? Jun Changshao asked, "Is there a way to save him?" This kind of poison is not scary, and it can only be formed after a long period of time. Moreover, it will not kill in small amounts, but if it accumulates to a certain extent and explodes, even the gods will not be able to save him. Jun Changshao was speechless. However, Miao Saifeng said again, "Patriarch has the fire spirit, so he should be able to forcibly resolve it." Understood. Jun Changshao took off the special sunglasses that were connected to the warship and looked at the crazy martial artist who was rushing toward him. "Consider yourself lucky to have met me." Schwa. He moved. Pa. He caught the crazy martial artist. Boom. With a slow movement of his left hand, he pressed the other party to the ground, and with a slow movement of his right hand, he opened the other party's mouth and threw the pill inside. Ah, the crazy martial artist screamed miserably. The middle-aged man from before said in surprise, "This guy is quite capable." The passers-by also began to talk about it. Obviously, They did not expect that this seemingly weak guy could easily subdue a crazy martial artist. Sure enough, the master is among the people. However, what shocked them even more was that the crazy martial artist who was pressed on the ground gradually recovered, and the violent fire force dissipated. He said with a dull face, "Am I not cultivating? Why am I on the street? He's awake. He's awake." The passers-by on the street exclaimed. Jun Changshao helped the recovered martial artist up, put on a sanctimonious appearance, and said, "You've just been poisoned. First, you'll lose your mind, and then you'll die on the spot. Jun is a virtuous person, so I used a special pill to completely cure you. It's coming." The system said, "Great conman Jun." Chapter 1679. The mad martial artist regained consciousness not because of the pill, but because Jun Changshao had integrated a wisp of fire soul power into the pill in advance. After taking it, he successfully purified the fire poison that affected his mind and nerves. It was just a very ordinary pill, not a mud ball made from his clothes. Go Sheng was not that dirty. Of course. He had to praise Miao Saifeng. Her diagnosis and treatment of poison symptoms were even better than Sun Bukong's. People who focused on poison were naturally good at detoxification. After saving the mad martial artist, Jun Changshao instantly realized that this was definitely a big business opportunity. He learned from the middle-aged man that this fire poison had a high incidence rate in the Scarlet Hell realm. Since he could easily detoxify it, he could help treat them and earn fire stones. Sure enough. He stood on the street and fooled the passers-by, and they all believed him. The mad martial artist had recovered. This was something that really happened in front of them, and they could not doubt it. What's more, the person who was saved was a local in the city. His neighbors who knew him knew that he had shown signs of being infected before, and there was no deliberate act. Divine Doctor. He's a divine doctor. For a time, the news that the mad martial artist did not die suddenly and was cured spread in the honorable martial city. It even alarmed the city lord, who personally came to the inn to visit Jun Changshao that night. Did it have to be so exaggerated? Readers who studied the history of the Scarlet Hell realm all year round should know that this fire poison disease existed for a long time. As long as one contracted it, it would be considered a terminal illness. Unless one broke through to a very high realm, there was no cure. The city lord of the honorable martial city was surnamed Wang. He was about 50 or 60 years old, and his sideburns were white. After he walked into the room of the inn, he lowered his posture and cupped his hands. "Mr. Jun, my son has also contracted a terminal illness. Thank you for your help. It's my responsibility to save the dying and heal the injured." Jun Changshao needed to make a name for himself as soon as possible so that he could treat more patients. Naturally, he would not miss this opportunity. So, he went to the city lord's mansion that night and saw the city lord's son locked in a dark room. This person sometimes grinned and sometimes talked to himself like a mental patient. Patriarch. Miao Saifeng, who was on Eternal, looked at the image sent to her through a pair of special glasses. She said, "This person should be in the early stage of being poisoned. He's in a mental state. If he doesn't receive treatment, he'll go crazy and die." Sun Bukong shed tears. Treating illnesses should have been his forte, but Hall Master Miao had stolen his limelight. Lord Wang. Jun Changshao looked like a godly doctor. After carefully observing the situation, he said, "Your son's illness can be cured with just one pill." City Lord Wang was overjoyed. However, Jun Changshao said, "The medicinal ingredients needed for the pill are extremely expensive, so, City Lord Wang was, after all, a veteran of the Jianghu who had been on the battlefield for a long time. He didn't wait for Jun Mo Xie to finish his words and said straightforwardly, "Mr. Jun, I will buy the pills. You can name your price." 10 first-class firestones. Jun Changshao wasn't the type to beat around the bush. He was greedy for the energy of the Scarlet Hell Realm, so he was despicable. City Lord Wang was stunned. What? Did he think it was too much? City Lord Wang's expression changed, and he said unhappily, if Mr. Jun's pill can cure my son's terminal illness, 10 first-class firestones would be blasphemy to a divine doctor like you, so at least 1,000. The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched violently. The difference between 10 and 1,000 firestones was huge. The system couldn't help but complain, why do I feel like the author is deliberately whitewashing the host's reputation? City Lord Wang was very generous and promised 1,000 first-class firestones. However, the prerequisite was that he could cure his son's terminal illness. Otherwise, he would be regarded as a scammer and be locked up in prison. It wasn't that he was heartless, but since ancient times, many people had used the name of curing fire poison to swindle people in the Scarlet Hell Realm. Of course. Jun Changshao was truly capable. He took out a pill that had been infused with the power of the fire soul in advance and threw it into the mouth of the city lord's son. After a while, the other party gradually recovered from his demented state and said, "Father, what happened to me?" "My son, you're awake." City Lord Wang immediately burst into tears. Although he had many wives and concubines, he only had one precious son. Now that he saw his son's clear eyes and normal behavior, he definitely couldn't control his emotions. "Mr. Jun." He hurriedly bowed to Jun Changshao and said, "You really are a divine doctor." Jun Changshao said, "Your son has just recovered from a serious illness and is very weak. He needs to be carefully nursed back to health for a few months." "Understood, understood." As City Lord Wang spoke, he winked at several accompanying doctors. The latter hurriedly supported the young master and took the opportunity to diagnose his internal body. He transmitted his voice, "City Lord, the violent force in the young master's body has been completely removed. Young Master Wang's terminal illness was cured, and the city lord's residence suddenly became lively." Jun Changshao, who was known as the divine doctor, naturally had to be treated. At the banquet, City Lord Wang held up 1,000 first-class firestones and raised his cup. "This terminal illness has troubled the Scarlet Hell Realm for many years. Since you were able to cure it, it will definitely benefit the present generation and the future generations." "You flatter me, City Lord Wang." Jun Changshao said modestly, "Jun is just a rural doctor. I only hope to save more patients with my own meager strength. I don't care about the so-called fame and fortune." City Lord Wang almost believed him if he didn't see how fast he collected the money. Jun Patriarch. The incidence of this terminal illness is extremely high, especially in high officials and nobles. You have the ability to cure it, and you will definitely have a meteoric rise in the future. Jun Changshao didn't seem to care, but he was very happy in his heart. The more patients he had, the more money he could earn. Jun Changshao temporarily stayed in the city lord's residence. In the dead of night, he forced out the alcohol and took out a first-class firestone from his space ring. "Let's see how it works." Whoosh! He sat cross-legged on the ground and released his spiritual thoughts. Strictly speaking, Jun Changshao was also a fire cultivator. After all, he had the body of holy flame and the spirit of fire soul. This kind of extremely high fire attribute martial arts resource could be completely absorbed. Whoosh! Whoosh! Wisps of fire attribute energy floated into his dantian and gradually merged with his energy core. Suddenly, Jun Changshao frowned. Although the energy from the firestone was extremely pure, it was mixed with a trace of irritable force. Could it be, Goshen guessed, the reason why the Scarlet Hell Realm martial artists suffer from the incurable disease is because of the long-term intake of firestones, which caused the disease to accumulate. The incidence of this terminal illness is extremely high, especially in high officials and nobles. The words that City Master Wang had said at the banquet earlier rang in his ears, allowing him to be certain, it should be close to the mark. It was definitely easy for high officials and nobles to obtain firestones, and their intake was far higher than ordinary people, so it was easy to understand why they were the main group of people suffering from the disease. TSK, TSK. Jun Changshao sighed. This is the disease of the rich. Whoosh. With a thought, the power of Fire Soul spread out and purified the irritable force in his dantian. The cause of the illness has been found. Jun Changshao touched his chin and said, if I can develop a preventive medicine to suppress the irritable force, won't I become rich overnight? Hall Master Miao. Jun Changshao asked through telepathy, can this fire poison be prevented? Yes. Miao Saifeng said, but it needs the power of Fire Soul from the Patriarch, and it will take some time. How long? 3 to 5 months if it's fast, 3 to 5 years if it's slow. This fire poison incurable disease can only be solved by attacking the root cause, so I'll leave it to you. You must develop a preventive medicine as soon as possible. Jun Changshao stayed in the city lord's mansion for several days. When the news of the city lord's son's recovery spread, more and more famous families brought patients to treat, and they all prepared thousands of first-class firestones. To be honest, fire poison incurable disease was really the disease of the rich. Jun Changshao had treated so many patients, but he had never met an ordinary one. It was obvious that it was difficult to ingest firestones, so it was almost impossible to get sick. Mr. Jun, one day, when he returned from shopping outside, City Lord Wang came over in a panic and whispered, a noble has come to visit you. How expensive? The royal family of the Blue Waves Empire. Chapter 1680. The inner courtyard of the city lord's mansion was heavily guarded, with a sentry every 3 steps and a sentry every 5 steps. Jun Changshao followed a tall and sturdy general in. Looking at the well-trained soldiers, he muttered in his heart, as expected of the imperial family. Their battle formation is really big. He was a little surprised when the city lord informed him that the royal family of the empire had come. After all, he had only treated patients for a few days in the Scarlet Hell world. How did the news spread to the distant imperial capital? Could it be that there were also patients? Thinking of this kind of disease that made it easier to get infected with the more firestones one absorbed, Jun Changshao immediately understood. Mr. Jun, as the general walked, he reminded him, please don't spread the news of our visit. Understood. Jun Changshao could see that the warriors in the city were living as usual, which meant that the royal family of the empire had secretly come. Ta! The general stopped outside the room and cupped his hands. Young master, Mr. Jun is here. Please. A slightly weak voice sounded. Although Jun Changshao didn't understand medicine, he could tell that the person who spoke was definitely sick. Please. The general waved his hand. Jun Changshao bluntly pushed the door open and entered, only to see a gentle and beautiful woman inside. She was sitting in an armchair, her face pale and her eyes dull. She squeezed out a smile with difficulty, looking very pitiful. This is the royal family of the Blue Waves Empire. Jun Changshao muttered in his heart. A sudden visit. The woman said, please forgive me, Mr. Jun. Although her voice was weak, there was nobility in her speech. It could be seen that not only did she have a high status, but she also had a very high education. Jun Changshao sat on the chair that was obviously prepared for him and cupped his hands. How should I address you? Wuxia. The woman seemed to be a little strenuous to speak. She simplified the red tape and introduced herself very straightforwardly. Eldest princess of the Blue Waves Empire. Princess. This identity was a little big. Jun Changshao got up and pretended to be respectful. This commoner Jun Chaoshui greets your highness. In other people's territory, he naturally had to follow the procedures. What's more, whether or not he could make a lot of money depended on this royal customer. It was no problem to be humble. Then be humble. The system roared. Why are you called Jun Chaoshui? Of course. Wuxia said with a bitter face, my Blue Waves Empire is already at dusk, it is not worthy for Mr. Jun, this kind of eccentric person to salute. Jun Changshao was stunned. Although Blue Waves Empire only existed in name, but when all was said and done, it was still the ruler on the surface. Now that even the eldest princess looked down on him, the royal family was truly a coward. Your Highness. Jun Changshao asked, are you here for treatment? Not bad. Wuxia found it more and more strenuous to speak, so she paused for a moment after saying those two words before continuing, I heard that Mr. Jun can eradicate the fire poison incurable disease, so I specially came to seek medical treatment. Jun Changshao said, the princess doesn't seem to have contracted the fire poison. That's because I used some kind of special medicinal pill to suppress it. Although it stopped the spread of the poison, the consequence was that my body was weak all year round, Wuxia said. I see. Jun Changshao understood and immediately took out a pill. Saving people is like putting out a fire. Princess, please quickly take this and completely get rid of the fire poison. Wuxia had already heard about this kind of magical medicinal pill. Since she came from the imperial capital to seek medical treatment, she naturally wouldn't doubt it. She immediately took it and threw it into her mouth. The pill merged into her body, and the fire spirit power it emitted cleared the fire poison as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Wuxia's spirit gradually improved, and her lifeless eyes also became clear. As the princess of the empire, there was nothing to say about her appearance, but because she was plagued by illness all year round, she looked very pale and weak. Now that the fire poison was dispelled, she immediately recovered some beauty. As for how beautiful she was, there was no need to describe it, because in Jun Changshao's eyes, women were only tall, short, fat, and thin, and then, there was no difference. As expected. Wuxia stood up and said excitedly, Mr. Jun's medicinal pill can eradicate the fire poison incurable disease. The medicinal pill that your highness took was refined by Jun with more medicinal herbs, so you need to pay 2,000 first-class fire stones, Jun Changshao said. Seeing that she has a noble status, you immediately raise the price. The system said, profiteer. Jun Changshao defended himself in his heart, if it was a commoner, I would definitely give it to her for free, but this is the princess of the empire. Her life is so precious. Is it a loss to give her 2,000? Wuxia said, I didn't bring so many first-class fire stones, how about? She paused and smiled, follow me to the imperial capital, and I will double the compensation. Fuck. If you don't have money, why do you have to treat your illness? This. Jun Changshao said, this is a small business. He wanted to say that he didn't accept credit, but he felt that it was wrong and immediately said sanctimoniously, the medicinal pill that your highness took used too many medicinal herbs. If there are no fire stones, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to continue refining and treating others. The meaning was very simple. He had to pay. From this, it could be seen that Go Sheng was sometimes very stingy. There are many medicinal herbs in the palace's medicinal herb warehouse. After Mr. Jun goes, you can choose whatever you want, Wuxia said. This, General Che. Wuxia clapped her hands. Creak. The burly general walked in and said, I'm here. Wuxia said, take Mr. Jun to the imperial capital immediately. Take good care of him on the way and don't let any accidents happen. Yes. General Che accepted the order and looked at Jun Changshao. He cupped his hands and said, Mr. Jun, please. Jun Changshao's expression became interesting. He had already seen that this woman didn't want to go back on her word, but deliberately took him back to the imperial capital. Could it be that she liked him? Bah. The system really couldn't help it. Jun Changshao roared, what I'm thinking is, did she take a fancy to my medicinal pills and plan to lock me up in the forbidden area of the imperial palace and then become a tool for refining pills? He guessed right. This kind of fire-poison terminal disease had been rampant in the Scarlet Hell world for a long time and had become a problem that the medical world had never been able to solve. Suddenly, someone could cure it, so it must be controlled immediately. For example, Go Xing returned to Earth as a powerhouse. As long as he revealed a little bit of his cultivation, he would immediately be locked up in a research institute and undergo a comprehensive scientific dissection. Thud, thud, thud. Outside the city lord's mansion, a few carriages left. City Lord Wang stood at the door and watched them gradually disappear. He thought to himself, Mr. Jun is going to have a meteoric rise. However, the person involved was sitting in a cage-like carriage at the moment. He broke down and said, Your Highness, Jun has no objection to going to the imperial capital, but you don't have to lock me up. I'm afraid you'll run away, no. Wuxia hurriedly changed her words. Mr. Jun, don't misunderstand. This is my personal carriage. There are high-level formations around it to prevent assassination. Jun Changshao was speechless. This woman was still polite and reasonable just now, but after recovering from her illness, she was simply unreasonable. In fact, with Go Xing's strength, he could break the carriage with a raise of his hand. The reason why he sat in it obediently was because he wanted to go to the imperial capital. After all, there were more royal families there, and it was definitely a heaven for making money. A few days later, Jun Changshao jumped down from the prison carriage and looked at the city walls that protected the imperial capital. The ground leading to the city was extremely muddy. The corner of his mouth twitched. This is the center of an empire. In the eyes of many kingdoms, the fact that the Blue Waves Empire still has an imperial capital is already a great gift from them, Wuxia said. Jun Changshao noticed that when this woman spoke, her hands were tightly clenched. There was anger and unwillingness in her bright eyes, so he secretly said, This woman is not simple. She has her own ideas. The system said, In my opinion, the host is not simple. The people he meets are not simple. Chapter 1681. In Jun Changshao's imagination, the center of an empire must be magnificent and majestic, but in the end, it was broken bricks and tiles, and even the roads were full of potholes. It was completely in disrepair for a long time. The most speechless thing was that after walking into the imperial city, there were almost no pedestrians on the main street. It looked empty. Mr. Jun should be very disappointed, right? Wuxia said. Yes. Jun Changshao said frankly, very disappointed. This was not an imperial city at all, it was like a slum. Wuxia said, the major kingdoms have left one after another. My Kanglan Empire can only control this city now. Because there is no financial income, it has not been repaired for hundreds of years. No subjects. Only tens of thousands of people, many have left. Jun Changshao was silent. He knew that the Kanglan Empire already existed in name, but he did not expect it to be so miserable. There was only a dilapidated imperial city. Wait a minute. The imperial city was already so poor, and the imperial palace's medicinal warehouse still had medicinal herbs. Princess. Jun Changshao said weakly, can you take out 2,000 first-grade fire stones? First-grade fire stones were equivalent to Dao stones in the upper realm. For such a destitute imperial family to take it out, it felt unreliable. Is second grade enough? No. Jun Changshao had already done tests during this period of time. Only the energy contained within a first-grade fire stone could drive a warship. I'm sorry. Wuxia said with shame, I only have second-grade and third-grade fire stones, can I use them to replace first-grade fire stones? Jun Changshao wanted to say no, but seeing that she was the princess of an empire but lived in a poor imperial city, he took pity and said, "Yes. Thank you." Wuxia forced a smile on her face, but her heart was incomparably bitter. Born in the imperial family, she should have lived a life of luxury, but in the end, she could not even take out the money to see a doctor. How miserable was this? "Princess," Jun Changshao said seriously, "bringing me to the imperial city, I'm afraid there is another purpose." Go Shing's eyes were not sharp, and he did not release any martial arts aura around him. However, he inexplicably made Wuxia absent-minded and even made her feel an enormous pressure. She lowered her head and said, "I hope to obtain Mister's help to make Blue Wave's empire rise again." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. "I'm just a medicine seller. What ability do I have to help the empire rise?" It was undeniable that with Go Xing's strength, it would be no problem for him to sweep through the Scarlet Hell realm. He didn't even need to do anything. He could just send the 11 warships docked outside, and his disciples alone would be enough to beat the major kingdoms. However, how could he interfere with other people's internal affairs? To put it bluntly, Jun Changshao treated himself as an outsider. He drifted away from Jianghu and did not care about Jianghu matters. This was Jianghu. Moreover, even if they had sufficient energy, it would take at least a few years to reach the astral spirit world. Who knew how many planes they would pass by on the way? Did they have to help the weak all the time? "I'm sorry," Jun Changshao said tactfully, "I'm just a commoner, and I only know how to refine pills. It's difficult for me to provide help to the princess." Wuxia said, "Mister's pill can eradicate the fire poison incurable disease. Many families, forces, and even the nobles and ministers have suffered greatly. If you can cure them, it will definitely help my Blue Wave's empire rise." Jun Changshao understood. This woman wanted to use his pill to rope in the major forces. The idea was not bad. However, she was too naive. Jun Changshao had not been in the Scarlet Hell realm for long, but he already had enough understanding of the situation. Just the kingdoms that had separated were no less than dozens. Even if this woman had the idea of turning the tide, it would definitely be extremely difficult to implement. Moreover, how could the various vassals watch the imperial family of the Blue Wave's empire rise? "Your Highness," Jun Changshao said, "this kind of thing should not be done by a woman. It should be done by the emperor and the prince of the Blue Wave's empire. Father is imprisoned, and both of my brothers were killed." Speaking of this, Wuxia could no longer control her tears. "Where are the other members of the imperial family? The major kingdoms do not allow healthy people to exist in the imperial family. Because I am a woman and have been infected with diseases all year round, I was lucky to survive," Wuxia said. Jun Changshao was silent. Was there any difference between the imperial family and the nobles being destroyed? The major kingdoms were fighting each other to the death. When someone completely unified the plane, the Blue Wave's empire could officially withdraw from the stage of history. The imperial palace was very big, but because of the overgrown weeds, it looked quite lonely. Occasionally, a few soldiers could be seen patrolling, but they were completely listless. Jun Changshao walked all the way and said with emotion, "Your Highness, to put it bluntly, with the current state of the Blue Wave's empire, it is completely impossible for you to turn the tide." "That's right." Wuxia stopped and said, "It was impossible before, but now that Mister is here, it is possible." Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "I can only cure diseases, but I can't cure people's hearts. Of course, the pill could help the nobles recover, but why would they help the Blue Wave's empire rise for this reason?" "Mister," Wuxia said, "please follow me." The two walked to the forbidden area of the imperial palace and stopped in front of a sealed hall. The words "Future Pavilion" were written on it. "Future Pavilion?" Jun Changshao was puzzled. "What do you mean?" "The ancestor of my Blue Wave's empire was able to unify the Scarlet Prison world because of the help of an expert. Before he left behind 20 maps to deduce. Among them, 23 have come true, and only one map has not been solved until now. Oh. Jun Changshao was quite surprised. Is it so magical? Mister, please. Creak. As if it had been closed for too long, when the door was pushed open, a burst of dust and a rotten smell floated in. Jun Changshao walked in, and the special array inside was activated, illuminating the dark environment. The scale of this hall was not small, and the walls were outlined with ink paintings with small annotations. The general idea was that something would happen in a certain era. Blue Waves Calendar Year 1021, strange beasts will appear in the east. Blue Waves Calendar Year 2451, Cloud Sky Kingdom will have civil strife. Blue Waves Calendar Year 3425, Jun Changshao looked as he walked until he stopped in front of the 24th map. His expression gradually stiffened because the content was written, Blue Waves Calendar Year 12020, Zunwu City will have a great expert who can cure the fire poison terminal disease, help the empire collapse, and save the royal family. Mr. Wuxia walked over and said, this is the only map that did not come true. I believe you now understand why I brought you to the imperial capital. Jun Changshao didn't say anything. Instead, he carefully examined the inkwash painting. The shock in his heart was even more intense. This was because the painting depicted a warship floating in the sky, and it depicted tens of thousands of people kneeling outside the imperial capital. 1, 2, 3, Go Sheng counted one by one, and the expression on his face stiffened again because the warships in the painting just happened to correspond to his 11 warships. First, it predicted the cure of the fire poison terminal disease. Then, it predicted 11 warships floating above the imperial capital. It was definitely not a coincidence. Put on. At this time, Wuxia knelt on the ground and begged with tears streaming down her face, Mr. Jun must be the Almighty mentioned in the deduction diagram. Please save my Blue Waves Empire and save the millions of common people in the flames of war. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew, blowing away Jun Changxiao's gray coat, revealing his imposing figure. The mask on his face was blown away, revealing his extraordinary heroic face. Princess. Jun Changshao said with his back facing her, Jun, if you help the empire collapse and save the royal family, can you give me a first-class fire stone as a reward? Mister, you can have as many as you want. Whoosh! Wuxia was helped up by Jun Changshao. Jun Changxiao's voice rang out from the main hall, echoing throughout the imperial capital. I will help you with this matter. Chapter 1682. The wind definitely couldn't blow off the gray coat, let alone the face-changing mask. The reason why it fell was obvious that Jun Changshao did it on purpose. In fact, when he saw the imperial palace in such dire straits, Go Sheng was moved by compassion. He was helpless. There was no good excuse. After all, his character was a money grubber. If he suddenly helped a woman, he would definitely be labeled as someone who forgets his friends for love. It was difficult to be a man. It was even more difficult to be the protagonist of this book. Just when Jun Changshao was in a dilemma, he saw the deduction map and immediately realized that he was destined to come to the Scarlet Prison world. Since that was the case, he might as well be the savior. Anyway, he was already familiar with this matter. He could help. He couldn't lose his character. After the matter was done, he had to get benefits. Indeed. The Blue Waves Empire was now very poor. Wuxia said that he could have as much as she wanted, or it was a stopgap measure. But if he helped her integrate the major kingdoms, would they still lack money and resources? The system gave a more reasonable explanation from its own point of view. The host is sticking to the bottom line and doesn't dare to rob. Now that the princess is kneeling down and begging, it just gives you an excuse to accumulate wealth. Get lost. Jun Changshao cursed. The system returned to the topic. List all the major events that will happen 10,000 years later. Could it be that the person who left the deduction map can predict the future? Indeed. Jun Changshao said, "That's incredible." From the words written above, it was clear that it was talking about him. The time and place were calculated accurately without any mistake. The expert who assisted the ancestor of Blue Wave's empire to establish outstanding meritorious service, either his strength was incomparably valiant, or he came from the future. Mr. Jun. After receiving the reply, Wuxia was overjoyed and said, "The two nearby kingdoms still have respect for the Blue Wave's empire. Mr. Jun can go and treat them, persuade them to help, and then destroy them one by one." Jun Changshao was speechless. Did this woman really think that she could save the country by treating illnesses? Young and naive. "Princess," Jun Changshao turned around and said, "since I have decided to help you, there is no need to go through so much trouble." Mr. Jun, seeing his appearance become younger, Wuxia's expression gradually became sluggish. Sigh. As expected, he couldn't show his handsome appearance. At this moment, Wuxia said, "My hair is crooked." Previously, when he fought against the patriarch of the 10 great immortal sects in the sect of all times, his hair loss relapsed. Therefore, after leaving the upper realm, Jun Changshao always wore a magically modified wig. Just now, when he shook off his coat and mask, he used too much force, causing his hair to be a little messy. "Princess." General Che hurriedly walked in, not caring about Jun Changshao's presence. His eyes flashed with anger as he reported, "The various kingdoms have sent people again. Why are you here again?" Wuxia frowned. These kingdoms had always been keeping an eye on the royal family and would come to harass them every now and then. She was already used to it. Jun Changshao said, "They should be here to look for Jun." "How so?" "It's quite simple. Even with the princess's current situation, she was able to learn that Jun could cure the fire-poison terminal illness. Don't the other kingdoms have spies in the honorable martial city?" "You have a point, sir." In fact, Wuxia was able to rush over from the imperial capital as soon as possible because she completely believed in the deduction map's prophecy. Therefore, she had always been paying attention to the honorable martial city. As for the city lord, he was also one of the few who was loyal to the royal family. In the palace hall. To describe it in an idiom, it was a house with 4 bare walls. The ambassadors of the various kingdoms stood on both sides proudly with their heads held high and chests puffed out. They could not wait to raise their heads to the sky. Over the years, the Scarlet Hell realm had been in constant wars, and the various kingdoms were at loggerheads with each other. Therefore, these representatives naturally did not like each other. Everyone. Wuxia walked out from the side door and sat on the emperor's throne that only her father could sit on. This action immediately stunned the envoys from all over the world. "Princess." One of them said indifferently, "Since ancient times, only the highest ruler of the empire is qualified to sit on the throne. I'm afraid it's inappropriate for you to sit on it." This was considered tactful. Another ambassador next to him sneered and said, "Could it be that the princess wants to usurp the throne and replace the emperor? The emperor has been imprisoned outside by you traitors. As the saying goes, a kingdom cannot be without a ruler for a day. How can the princess, who has the emperor's blood, not be qualified to sit on the throne? Who is it?" Everyone turned around and saw a man in white about 20 years old walking in from outside the hall. He leaned against the door with a smile on his face that deserved a beating. Wuxia, who was still a little flustered, immediately calmed down when she saw Mr. It was Jun Changshao's suggestion to sit on her father's throne. Because the easiest way to help the empire and the royal family was about to fall was to appoint a new emperor, invite the leaders of the various kingdoms, and ask them if they were willing to submit. To win over the nobles with treatment, not to mention whether it would succeed, at least it would be very troublesome. Therefore, Goshing did not have time to play. Now. He would do it as simply and roughly as possible. All those who were not willing to submit would be made obedient. "Boy! An ambassador coldly shouted, "Who are you?" Ta. Jun Changshao walked straight to the throne, pulled out a chair, and sat next to Wuxia. He crossed his legs, clasped his fingers, and said, "Blue Waves Empire's great general, Jun Changshao." "Great general?" An ambassador sneered, "My Blue Waves Empire has been established for tens of thousands of years, but there has never been a great general." "There wasn't before." Wuxia said, "There is now." After that, she took out the imperial jade seal her father gave her from her space ring and solemnly announced, "In the name of the Blue Waves Empire's great general, I announce that Jun Changshao will be the great general of the Blue Waves Empire." Shua. Jun Changshao hurriedly walked down and cupped his hands, "Thank you, Your Majesty." "Your Majesty." This woman dared to secretly ascend the throne. Ha ha ha. An ambassador of a certain country laughed, a woman without soldiers and generals actually dared to try to usurp the throne. It seems that the fire poison attacked her heart and burned her brain. Great lord, at this moment, a few soldiers staggered in and said in a frightened tone, There are monsters in the sky, monsters." Everyone was at a loss, so they walked out of the hall one after another. When they raised their heads, their expressions gradually became sluggish until it reached the level of hardening. What did they see? They saw the sky gradually distort as if it was being torn apart by some kind of terrifying force. Then, more than 10 huge warships slowly appeared. The momentum was so great that it shook the sky and the mountains and rivers. Ka! Ka! The bottom of the cabin opened, and streams of light flew out and landed neatly in the inner courtyard of the palace. Astonishingly, 200,000 well-equipped and tall soldiers appeared. All the ambassadors were completely dumbfounded. Even Wuxia who walked out was dumbfounded. Shua! 200,000 Moang soldiers performed the highest standard military salute and shouted loudly, "Greetings, Your Majesty." "Greetings, Great General." Their voices were so loud that it seemed to pierce through the void and deeply shocked Wuxia and the other ambassadors. Shua! Jun Changshao flew out and stood in front of the army. He had already put on his armor and cupped his hands. This General Jun Changshao is willing to go through water and tread on fire for the Blue Waves Empire. He was not pretending. He was helping Wuxia to pretend. Chapter 1683. Jun Changshao decided to help Wuxia, but she was an outsider after all. Thus, he thought of a way to help her become the emperor and appoint himself as the general. This way, he would have an excuse to beat up the various kingdoms. Of course. Go Sheng was already very low-key. He only sent out 200,000 devil soldiers and left the rest in the warships. Otherwise, the entire plain would be bathed in blood. Speaking of which, why did Jun Changshao want to build so many warships? It was because he wanted to bring his army with him at all times. When they were outside, they might encounter trouble. So, having more people would definitely give them an advantage. There was no such thing as a one-on-one battle. Either you fight us alone or we fight you alone. The envoys of the various kingdoms were deeply shocked by the hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Especially when they felt the extremely powerful demonic chi, they were so frightened that their hair stood on end. They had seen millions of soldiers before, but they had never seen 200,000 Transformation Corps realm warriors. Furthermore, they were men who were riding horses. They were mighty and majestic. Naturally, Wuxia was the most shocked. After all, 11 warships were floating above the imperial city. It was exactly the same as the 24 diagrams. The only difference was that it lacked the worshipping of thousands of people. Imperial Father. This is true. Mr. Jun can help our Blue Waves Empire rise. She became more and more emotional. In the end, she covered her mouth and tried hard not to cry. Sitting on the throne and appointing Jun Changshao as the general, everything was arranged. Wuxia was nothing more than going through the formalities. She even suspected that her actions would be used against the royal family by the various kingdoms. However, when the battleships appeared, when the elite soldiers appeared, all the doubts vanished into thin air. He could. Shio. At this moment, the disciples of the sect of all times led by Li Qingyang flew out of the warships. They were wearing battle armor and had cold gazes. They seemed to have transformed into veteran generals. Capture all these traitors who bring disaster to the country and the people. Jun Changshao shouted angrily. The aura of the general immediately soared. If one was not in position, one should not meddle in politics. If one was in position, one had to meddle in politics. Yes. Upon receiving the order, all the disciples rushed over. Let's see who dares. One of the ambassadors stepped forward and clenched his fists tightly. Violent fire elemental energy burst forth and tore his shirt apart, revealing his perfect 8-pack abs. Tsk tisk. Envoy Yang's use of the fire cloud body has reached the pinnacle. Some people exclaimed in surprise. Humph. Envoy Yang coldly said, when has there ever been a woman ascending the throne in my Blue Waves Empire? Today, if Princess wants to go against the laws of our ancestors, I, Yang Ji will absolutely not agree. Boom. The ground caved in and dust flew everywhere. Yi Xingchen walked out with an arrogant look on his face. He dragged Envoy Yang's leg with one hand as if he was dragging a dead dog. He said, trash should go back to the garbage dump. I, Knight Emperor, am still a man of few words. Silence. Ye see. All the envoys knew of Yang Ji's strength. Who would have thought that he would be defeated by a young man who looked cold and arrogant but was not very strong? Yi Xingchen was suppressing his aura. Otherwise, with his current strength, he would be one of the top experts in the entire Scarlet Hell realm. Sitting on the chair prepared by Xiao Ziji, Jun Changshao crossed his legs and faintly said, if you guys cooperate, you can avoid physical pain. Brat. An envoy said angrily, you must have used some method to control the princess. As subjects of the Blue Waves Empire, how can we let you do whatever you want? Jun Changshao said, you actually have the face to call yourself a subject of the Blue Waves Empire. How laughable. Whoosh. Whoosh. Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and the others had already flown over. Each of them stared at an envoy, waiting for their final statement. Everyone. An envoy shouted, since the princess is going against the flow, we must stop her. As soon as this was said, everyone responded. Then, when they gave their statement, Li Qingyang and the others began the next step of the plan, which was to directly capture them. The various envoys would definitely not be captured without a fight. They all erupted with their cultivation, forming a rather vast and mighty aura. Li Qingyang and the others looked at each other. They had a look of, I wanted to get along with you as an ordinary person, but in exchange, whoosh. Whoosh. The core disciples did not pretend anymore. They fully released their cultivation of the truth-seeking realm, directly suppressing the martial aura of the various envoys. The envoys' expressions changed drastically, and they even vomited blood on the spot. These people's strength was not bad, but in front of the disciples of the sect of all times, they were weak chickens. Plop. Plop. Under the terrifying pressure, the various envoys knelt on the ground, feeling extremely painful. Your Majesty. Jun Changshao said, the best way to deal with such people is not to persuade them, but to directly make them kneel. Yu Fiya was silent. In the past, she wanted to rely on the power of pills to rope in talents to revive the royal family. Now, she understood that to this was simply a waste of time. Whoosh! Whoosh! Li Qingyang and the others led a large number of soldiers from the imperial city and flew in all directions. The envoys were just assistants. It was useless to make them kneel. They had to make all the heads of the kingdom kneel. Your Majesty. Jun Changshao poured a cup of tea and said with a smile, "Please wait quietly for 2 hours. The might of the empire will resound throughout the Scarlet Prison realm again." Chapter 1684. In the main hall of the Daiyuan kingdom, King Jin Yuanshu sat on the throne with a complicated expression on his face as he held the secret report he had just received. The content of the letter was that Princess Royal Wuxia had ascended the throne without permission and appointed Jun Changshao as the great general. Everyone. He threw the letter to his advisors and asked, "What do you think of this?" Everyone read it one by one with disapproval on their faces. Who is Jun Changshao? This person is no longer important. An advisor with a goatee cupped his hands and said, "Since the establishment of the Blue Waves Empire, it has always been passed down to males and not females. The princess's ascension to the throne is against the laws of the ancestors. Our Daiyuan kingdom can take this opportunity to eliminate her to prevent future troubles." That's right. This is a great opportunity. Everyone agreed. Jin Yuanshu, on the other hand, had a troubled look on his face, but he was actually quite happy. As one of the more powerful kingdoms in the Scarlet Hell world, he naturally wanted to replace the Blue Waves Empire and build his own dynasty. However, the royal family still existed, so he couldn't act too recklessly to avoid being labeled as a traitor. The other powerful kingdoms also thought so. When it was difficult to unify the Scarlet Hell world, abolishing the royal family without permission would only bring trouble. But now, it was different. The Blue Waves Empire's emperor was still alive, and the Princess Royal had ascended the throne as a woman. They could take the opportunity to eliminate her. At least the world wouldn't gossip. "King," the advisor said, "time waits for no one. Strike first and gain the upper hand." "Makes sense." Jin Yuanshu immediately stood up and said, "Immediately send troops to take control of the imperial city and announce to the public that the Princess Royal wants to go against the tide and usurp the throne." "Yes." Boom. However, just as the advisors received the order, an earth-shattering explosion suddenly came from outside, and the entire hall trembled. Jin Yuanshu frowned and immediately led everyone out. He saw that the great array guarding the main city had appeared, and there were pits in the city gate area as if it had been hit by some force. "King!" A general hurriedly ran over and said with a panicked expression, 10,000 well-equipped soldiers suddenly appeared outside the city and are trying to break the great array of the main city. Jin Yuanshu was instantly enraged. The Yuan city was the capital city that he had painstakingly managed, and it would also be the imperial capital of the future empress. It was surrounded by various troops and horses, and could be said to be impregnable. How could it be attacked for no reason? Reporting. At this moment, a guard ran over. "Flying Eagle City has been breached." "What?" Jin Yuanshu stood there in a daze. Soaring Eagle City was an important military base of the Daiyuan kingdom. Elite soldiers were stationed there all year round, and they had never heard of the front lines being in a dire situation. How could it be gone just like that? Reporting. Huguan City was breached. Reporting. Lion Might City has been breached. Reporting. In a short time, the spies who were responsible for getting in touch with the major cities sent in information one after another. The atmosphere outside the hall instantly became extremely quiet. Pooh! A moment later, Jin Yuanshu spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot, clutching his chest as he staggered backward. With so many cities falling at the same time, who would be able to take it? Boom! At this moment, another deafening noise rang out. The strategists present saw a beam of energy that dragged a stream of light fiercely smashing into the great city protection array, creating a massive ripple. Crack! Crack, crack, crack. The formation quickly collapsed, forming a dense cluster of cracks. Oh no! The great city protection array is about to be broken. Boom! At this moment, another stream of light flew over and mercilessly smashed into the crumbling barrier. Unable to bear the load, it instantly shattered into countless specks of light and quickly disappeared into the void. Whoosh! Whoosh! Tens of thousands of devil army soldiers flew over rapidly. They floated above the city, and a monstrous demonic aura spread wildly, forming an extremely terrifying oppressive force. The Grand General has given the order. Xiao Ziji stood at the front of the army and said, "The Yuan King Jin Yuanshu must immediately go to the capital to meet His Majesty. If he disobeys, kill him without mercy." The camera panned to the outside of the city, and field cannons were placed horizontally on the hills. The continuous bombardment of the great city protection array came from firearms that had not been used for a long time. The system's products were definitely of high quality. Whether or not they could be used depended on the strength of the source. Without high-quality resources as a substitute, it would be difficult to even kill mosquitoes in the upper realm. With high-quality resources as a substitute, it would not be a problem to blast through the entire upper realm. Of course. It was just an exaggeration. After all, there was a limit to the power of the modified field cannon. It was difficult to use it in the upper realm, but in the lower Scarlet Hell world, it could still be effective by incorporating high-quality resources. The Dayuan Kingdom's main city was heavily protected by various major cities. How did Xiao Ziji come here? It was very simple. All those who blocked his way were eliminated. In other words, the fall of all the major cities was due to him. Because they came too quickly and were destroyed too quickly, the news only slowly reached Jin Yuanshu's ears when Xiao Ziji led his troops to the main city. He was just talking about how time waits for no one, and that he should strike first to gain the upper hand. In the end, the two towers at home were all flattened. What a tragedy! A similar situation was playing out in the Changyuan Kingdom's main city. The devil army led by Su Xiaoma stood in the sky above the broken city. Their powerful demonic aura and cultivation shocked Prince Changyuan. In the face of absolute power, the defense of the Scarlet Hell world's major kingdoms was as fragile as paper. "All right," Prince Changyuan's hands trembled as he said with difficulty, "I'll go to the capital to meet His Majesty right away." His own elites and his own city had been destroyed in an instant. The soldiers that had suddenly appeared were too terrifying. He had no choice but to admit defeat. "Take him away," Su Xiaoma ordered. Whoosh! Whoosh! A few devil army soldiers flew to the front of the main hall and grabbed Prince Changyuan's arm. This was definitely not an invitation, but a forceful one. No one stopped them. Some had already fainted on the ground. The Yuan King Jin Yuanshu obviously did not have the same awareness as Prince Changyuan. His attitude was very tough. He only realized the seriousness of the problem when he was stepped on and saw all his subordinates being defeated. I'll go." The basic condition for cowardice was that the opponent's strength was overwhelming. "Take him away." Prince Changyuan and the Yuan King realized that the situation was not right and immediately cowered. The other was tough at first, but later admitted defeat. However, Dingyuan King of the Dingyuan Kingdom was not so lucky. He was tough at first, but in the end, his head was separated from his body. His dull eyes seemed to say, "You're not even giving me a chance to admit defeat? Take his head away." Yes. Two devil army soldiers flew down and took Dingyuan King's head. Yi Xingqian, who was standing outside the main hall, turned around and looked at the panic-stricken advisor. He said coldly, "This is the result of resisting. Only Night Emperor would not give the other party a chance to admit defeat." Imperial City. Jun Changshao sat on the city gate tower, drinking tea as he said, "Make your move." Yu Fia, who was sitting across the chessboard, was speechless. At this moment, how could she be in the mood to play chess? "Your Majesty," Jun Changshao advised, "look at it normally. Don't treat it as a big deal." Wuxia smiled bitterly and said, I don't have teacher's extraordinary composure. All right. Jun Changshao threw the chess piece on the table casually. He raised his hand to look at the ground and said, it's about time. They should be here soon. Whoosh! Whoosh! As soon as he said that, the devil army led by Su Xiaoma, Xiao Ziji, and the others quickly flew over and lined up outside the city. The leaders of the kingdoms bent their knees and knelt on the ground like prisoners. Changyuan King is here. The Yuan King is here. The loud shout shook the sky and Wuxia's heart. That was because 11 warships were hovering above the imperial city, and various lords were kneeling outside the city. It was a perfect fit with the 24 paintings in the future pavilion. Ding! Congratulations to the host for dominating the Scarlet Hell world. Ding! Completed the main mission, progress 1%. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.